Thank you all so much for being here today for our semi-annual KUWL Council meeting. We have a lot of new folks in the room that you're going to have a chance to introduce yourselves to. So welcome to all of those who are new to our convening. I'm going to start with just a few logistics here. You are welcome to get up at any time if you need to use the restroom, if you want to get snacks. Thanks to Andre Rupp, where is Andre? Right here for all of our snacks and drinks today. We really appreciate that. Restrooms, just as you came in, you'll go through those turnstiles, take a right down the hallway towards the cafe. Restrooms are on your right. Again, anytime you need to get up to refresh yourself, please feel free to do that. You have packets in front of you today. We've got the agenda. And then we've got all the slides that are there in front of you that you can follow along, and just other stuff that we'll be going through today. So just know that that's all right there in front of you. We will have lunch today. We'll be breaking around noon for lunch, provided by 3Ps. That should be ready when we are ready. And then, as I said, snacks provided by Center for Assessments. We want to say a huge thank you to all of our vendors. We have a slide up here. We've got so many folks who help us out to pull this together and to do all the work in between all of our convenings. So can we all just give a round of applause to all of these amazing vendors that we have? All right, we're going to have a little bit of an icebreaker. We all love icebreakers, right? All right. A collective sigh in the room. All right, it's going to be painless, I promise. I'm going to have everybody stand up. We have a lot of new champions, as I said. So I want you to try to find somebody that you have not met before. Get in groups of three. Just introduce yourself and see if you can find one thing that the three of you have in common. I'm going to give you 90 seconds, and then we're going to switch, and you're going to find two new people. We're going to do that 3 times. So you have the opportunity to meet 6 people this morning. All right, begin. Thank you all. I hope you had the opportunity to meet several new people this morning. As we get started, I want to say a very special thank you to Miss Penny Christian. Penny has been our chair for, I think, over a year. It's been, she has done a fabulous job. Can we all give Penny a hand and say thank you? All right, with that, our vice chair has been Dr. Jim Flynn, and that means that Jim is now moving into our chair position. So at this time, I'm going to welcome Jim up.
Okay, well, good morning, everyone, and happy summer. I hope everyone's having a great start to the summer. I'm so excited about this work that we're doing, thinking about the journey that we're on together. In fact, I was talking to Rhonda Sims, and we were talking about, coming in to Kara and this work way back in the day, right, Rhonda? I don't know if she's still here, but there she is. Let's thank her. What a wonderful career of service, and good luck in your next adventures in life. But Rhonda, thank you so much. So we were talking about where we were trying to go when Kara started, and how we were kind of finding our way and trying to build those capacities to kind of do this kind of work. But then along came this little thing from the feds called No Child Left Behind, which just blew it out of the water, right? And then not long after that, we ran into a recession and things got really tight. And then we ran into this little thing called a pandemic, but really, in some ways, those disruptions have all resulted in us being where we are today and kind of coming back full circle to reimagine what can be for education in Kentucky. And I think we have so much momentum on our side. The state is thriving economically. There's a lot of momentum to do something different on behalf of our kids to make that promise. And I think we all want them to have those learning experiences, and we talk about vibrant learning experiences that help them become the very best versions of themselves as citizens, as members of a family, as contributors to a community, and as thriving participants in the workforce, right? And all those things we want for our kids, and we want to make sure they have an education that puts them toward that. And so that's why we're here, united in this big why that we all share of what can be for our kids. And then I think about the Constitution of our state and how education really, at its core, is a state function. And the Constitution specifically says that we must provide for an efficient system of common schools. And what's so cool about that is that's primarily a partnership, a collaboration between the state and the local community. Even think about how we fund schools right now. It's primarily driven by a contribution from the state and a contribution from the local community. And so should accountability. It should be a shared responsibility as well. And so the local community shouldn't just bear only a financial stake in it. They have a stake in what matters most there, the contextual needs of that local community in complement with those statewide priorities that we all share. And so I see momentum on our side, momentum to align those statewide priorities with those streamlined federal requirements, to elevate local values and contextual needs through meaningful collaboration, and to build an accountability system that doesn't just measure, it motivates, empowers, and builds trust. We talk about it being a system of truth-telling and trust-building to really take us to the next level. And I really think as we think about how to make this happen, when I was superintendent, for example, I continually reminded our community, it gets the schools it wants. And when I think about what the state and the local community partnership can be, we can get the schools we all want if we'll just get together and do this. So I'm so excited about this work. I'm so excited about where we are and the momentum we have. Just a little evidence of that momentum. We had a summit of superintendents this past week. And one of the questions we asked them is, really, where are you in your support for this work of reimagining an accountability system that's meaningful and useful to all our learners? And 84% of them said either I'm all in or I'm really excited to learn more about this. And so if that's evidence of where we are and where we're moving, then I think we have a really bright future in front of us. So thanks for being here, and let's get started. So I want to next introduce our newly elected vice chair, and I'm so excited that she's with us. Brandy Howard is from Bullitt County. She's living this work, so give her a warm welcome.
Hi, I am Brandy Howard. I grew up in Bell County, Kentucky, and my first opportunity to engage in vibrant learning was in my junior U.S. history class with Pam Walters. And I still remember all of the many learning things that we did. And she even branched out and did some world history as well in that class. And one of the things that we did was we created a Holocaust museum. So not only did we do the research, but we worked with our carpentry program, and we built different things from that and really brought that to life for some veterans in our community. And when I was in her classroom, I immediately knew I want to be a teacher. I want to be an educator, and I want to do this. And so I then became a teacher in Bullitt County and taught there for 7 years. And then I went to Oldham County for a little bit, came back to Bullitt County as an instructional coach and principal, and really continued to do transformational learning. And in Bullitt County, we have been on this journey since 2016 and are continuing it and very involved. Everything that we have talked about, that is what we are doing in Bullitt County, and have been part of the L3 since it's, I think, the second year. And so I'm really, really excited to serve you all and serve this committee, not only for all of our students in the Commonwealth, but for my 2 kiddos in Bullitt County as well. So I'm really excited and look forward to learning alongside you today.
Thank you, Brandy. Okay, so let's take a look at this agenda that we have for you. A very engaging agenda, and thank you to everyone that put this together. But you'll be hearing from our commissioner, Robbie Fletcher, and I want to say just a big thank you to Commissioner Fletcher. He is not only a wonderful educator in person, but he listens and takes action on what he hears from stakeholders, and that's one thing I hear continuously from superintendents and other. But thank you for your leadership in this work, Commissioner Fletcher. We'll also hear from Jennifer Stafford. She's got big shoes to fill, but we're so excited for her to take over the helm that vacated by the retirement of Rhonda Sims. So congratulations, Dr. Stafford, on that. And she'll talk to us about Framework 4.0. Then we have a really exciting video presentation there from Lillian Pace and Karen Perry. Then we'll have a break, go into some vibrant learning experiences. Sarah Snipes and Robert Meacham will lead that. We'll look at some regional snapshots. We'll have a local accountability design guide and toolkit, and then our afternoon breakouts. So after lunch, we'll get in our breakout groups, and then we'll come back together, have some share outs and final reflections and next steps, and then we'll adjourn. We're gonna have a great day. Y'all ready for it? All right. So let's talk about how to be a champion. You saw, we're welcoming champions, and we need champions, and we've got to spread the word. We've got to grow champions. So when you think about us coming together, we are passionate about this. We wouldn't be spending our time if we weren't, right? But we got to get more people on our side. We got to build momentum for this. We're going into the 2026 legislative session with the intent to propose some really substantial and exciting policy proposals. And so we've got to spread the word and let them know how these changes can bring those vibrant learning experiences to every child in Kentucky. And so let's think about what being a champion is. So championing the moonshot's about building that understanding. It's like spreading that word. And mainly it's in your community. The policy is important, and we're going to work hard on that policy side of things, but we got to bring more and more people into what this is, and we got to spread the word to that. So being a champion is really going in there and helping others understand the why and choose to help us make this a reality for our kids. So think about 3 to 5 people that you can spread the word to. And maybe they're in job-alike work groups or from the same kind of lens that you're coming from. Attend public meetings, give your perspective, tell your stories, bring other people's along. If you have newsletters or websites or blogs or those kinds of things, use those platforms to spread the message and share your experiences around vibrant learning. Brandy just did that. She kind of talked about her why of becoming an educator, but it's those vibrant learning experiences that we retain, not filling in a bubble sheet or a worksheet, right? And so being a champion is kind of job one for all of us. Now we'll talk about being an advocate. And I know none of us got into education, those of us that are in education, to be in politics, right? But as I've said to you many times, the system is always perfectly designed for the results we're currently getting. But the system is simply a function of the policy landscape within which it exists and within which it operates. And so whatever those drivers are, those incentives in the policy landscape are going to be what happens in our schools. And what we're trying to do is reimagine what those drivers and incentives are in the policy landscape so that it creates the kind of systems we want for our kids. And so being an advocate is really connecting the dots from the policy to the system to what that actually means in student experiences. And so being an advocate is going to your legislators, and we're so grateful to have some folks here today. Representative Tim Truitt and Senator Matt Deneen are here, and then Senate Policy Advisor for Education, John Ballard. So thank you all for being here. Let's give them a warm welcome. One of the things that when I talk to them, they always tell me they want to hear from their constituents. They need to hear from their constituents. Sometimes when I talk to people on our side of the equation, they express, reticence. I'm nervous to talk to them. They're scary. And are you scary, Senator Deneen?
I hope not.
Oh, that's right. They're not scary. They're just people like us, and they're trying to do a good job for us up there. So take time, get to know them, build a relationship with them, and tell them those stories and how that translates into the work we do in our schools and connects to the policies they're making in Frankfort. Don't forget, too, that all politics is local. Anybody know who said that originally? Who's credited with that? All politics is local. Might show your age, you know. Anybody remember Tip O'Neill? So he was a longtime speaker of the House in Congress, and he always reminded everyone that all politics is local. And my point to that is, if you're a person who votes for them, they want to know what you think. That's why they're there, to serve you. So take time to share your stories. Why does it matter to you? Make it personal. Speak from your role as whatever your role is, and be ready to name the changes you want to see and ask them to get on board with us. You know, advocating is different from lobbying, and being an advocate is also like being a champion, but it's going to our policymakers and saying, this is what we need from you, join us. And so let's make sure that happens. All right, I think we're ready to get into the, so what can you do next? We have this little survey that we'd like you to look at and tell us you're willing to support and whether you have a story to tell. And so, Susan, they just hit this QR code, and so you can go ahead and take action on that right now. Join the movement. Be a champion and or an advocate. Oh. Okay. And you also have it in your handouts. All right. So, as I said, we have a commissioner of education who lives this, who breathes this, and who is a champion of this, but he's also a great listener and a great friend to us all. So please give us a warm welcome to Commissioner Robbie Fletcher.
Good morning, everyone. And before I show you a video, I think that we've had some of our partners work together and put together for us. I do want to say that I think we're at a critical point. And when I say a critical point, an exciting point in where we are in education right now. We have an opportunity to make real change. We have an opportunity to change the experience or add to the experience for every single student in the Commonwealth. And yes, we are looking at state accountability as it relates to the federal requirements, but the most exciting piece to me about this is the local accountability portion. And I'm going to show you a video here in just a second. Again, thank you. I think CIE put this together for us. And I think it gets us to where we are now. And I want you to see that. So let's start off with that video, please.
The Dr. Seuss book, All the Places You Will Go. We said we were going to the moon.
This is a once in a lifetime opportunity to really create an accountability model that's meaningful to our communities. It's responsive, it's transparent, and it's about shared ownership of what's happening in our schools. If anything positive came out of COVID, it was that communities want more voice in our schools.
This is built on 3 priorities, 3 pillars, if you will. First of all, vibrant learning experiences. Vibrant learning experiences to get our students in classes. But not only that, whatever they're doing is meaningful to when they leave our 4 walls. We're also encouraging innovation, especially around assessment. We firmly believe that math and reading are the foundation to make sure our students have the skills, have the foundational parts in order to move forward. But we're also looking at innovation to how can we encourage this type of learning to go throughout the Commonwealth. But also, too, I think the piece that makes this happen is the bold new part of collaboration with communities. Most, if not all, the opportunities I talked to you had to happen with a collaboration with a local business, with a hospital, with faith organizations. Those things could not happen without these 3 priorities that we make a part of everything we do here as a part of this new accountability system. This started with a council. We call it the Kentucky United We Learn Council. We have over 50 educators, students, family, community members, and legislators that have been a part of this work from across Kentucky. We've also had at least 18 different districts that have been a part of piloting a lot of the work that you see. And I've got 2 gentlemen here that are going to talk about their work here shortly. But the local laboratories of learning have helped us tremendously. And if you've been to a town hall, you've had the opportunity to see some of these people at work. When I say people, I'm talking about our districts, our teachers, our parents, the folks that are serving our local communities.
The community must become aware of the barriers to learning that students within their community encounter, and then it becomes the community's responsibility to address those barriers. And even as a policy wonk, I fully suspect that the community's address of those barriers will be much faster and more effective than depending on policy.
And the way we envision this looking for us in our district is each individual pillar will have community teams that review these pieces of evidence. And there'll be quantitative evidence and there'll be qualitative evidence as well. It won't all be numerical because not all of these things can be quantified by a number. But then we're going to rely on the community and these pillar groups and teams to tell us, is this evidence sufficient or is there more needed? Are we good enough where we say we want to be? Are we truly meeting the expectation, or is there more work to be done? And those conversations are what's going to drive our improvement initiatives and drive the decisions about how we spend our resources and time in terms of what we want to improve and how we want to improve those things.
And I do want to say, I hope we will continue to dig into the various aspects of this framework from the perspective of all the important people who will depend on it, including community leaders and also including students, to really understand how we can make this serve their needs for information to support their learning. This is not about making headlines. This is about informing practice, informing what we do to support students on the way to achieving their mastery of the curriculum objectives and standards in our curriculums.
And for those of you that have been a part of this journey for so long, thank you so much. And for those of you who are joining today, thank you so much. And I think one of the key words, the key word there is momentum. We talked about where we are. Jim gave a great statistic. As a former superintendent, I can say this. We are hard to convince. I mean, I'll be the first to admit it. When I go into a CAS meeting, I was sitting there and I was like, okay, how does this impact my local community? How is this making a difference? Okay, yes, that's working for Bullitt County, but how can this work for Lawrence County? So for me to buy in as a superintendent, it means that I believe this is what's best for my kids. And I believe that most, if not all, of our superintendents are in that spot. So if you look at that number, 84% of our superintendents are either all in, which I love the phrase there. Thank you for that, Jim. Or we are very excited, but we may have a few more questions. That's great statistics as we move forward. But also, too, another occurrence that happened that I'll be honest, I didn't really expect that really shows a piece of this momentum was during the IJCE meeting. We did a presentation and then we started having legislators give examples of what's happening in their district that's going along with vibrant learning. It wasn't the typical educators. These are people that were sitting and saying, you know, we're seeing a difference in Shelby County. We're seeing a difference in all of our communities when they engage in this work. As a matter of fact, one of my favorite quotes, Brandy, comes from Jesse. Don't tell him I'm bragging on him. Please don't. But he said that this process of local accountability has restored faith, the faith of his community in the school system. As a matter of fact, I had an opportunity to meet with a superintendent that's not part of the L3 work, but is working through this local accountability model and how they're implementing in their local, in their own county. It's Rockcastle County. If you have an opportunity to look at the work that's going on in Rockcastle County, I think they have 7 pillars, and they have community groups that have reviewed all 7 pillars, and they've also got, it's all data driven. And the thing that she said that really just hit home with me was, she said, sometimes as school leaders, we need to just hush and listen. Sometimes we just got to listen. And some of the things that was coming in from her community that was so important, she said, are things that maybe I wouldn't have taken it that far. Maybe I didn't think it. For example, her community, one of the parts of their local accountability was we think safety, student safety is so important. So one of our goals is to have an SRO in every single one of our schools. They listened. They expanded from 2 SROs to 5 SROs. They found another funding source to help to pay for this. So now, if you heard what Dr. Robinson said, that now the community owns the problem or the issue. And now as a community, we're finding solutions for it. Yes, we're trying to address our students that are falling behind in math and reading, and we want to push them farther. We want to push them beyond the goals that we have, but we also want to find things that what's making a difference in our community. And before I get into it, there's one other, I've said this already, and actually Tracy said this too. Tracy Muracy at Greenup County, really, I think it opened my eyes a little bit more. In 2009, Greenup County High School was one of the lowest performing high schools in the state. She'll tell you this, bottom 10. They went through the turnaround process and made a lot of great changes in the educational system and how to address math and reading within their district. They did their MTSS systems or RTI systems to make a difference, to make a change. By 2019, Greenup County was one of the high performing districts in the state. But the statistics she gave me that really hit home was, she said in 2009, we had 64.3% was our poverty rate. In 2019, after all this turnaround, our poverty rate was 64.3% or 64.2, within 0.1%. She said, we did not make a difference in our community that we wanted to. You talk about local accountability. When you start focusing in on working with your local businesses on how you can change statistics like that, that's impressive. Local accountability is so much more, such a higher level of accountability than what we have now. And I think that's something that to me is so exciting, because you have to have the input of others. Now, I want to talk a little bit about our journey so far. We have our moonshot, this is what we talk about our journey to the moon. And Jennifer and I, we've done some town halls, 9 town halls, and she's always pointed out how this is an iterative process. I did some research yesterday, and I wanted to go back to where, let's extend this back out. Let's come over here for just a second. This work started in 2021 with the Kentucky Council for Advancing Education. There were around 53, 55, part of that over here, my friend, Lawrence County. I was a part of that work. And the goal of that group was to have empathy interviews to see what is our current state, what's the perceived current state of education in our Commonwealth, and what's our dream to where we want to go. So after a year of work, it was a report was published, and it was called United We Learn, Hearing Kentucky's Voices on the Future of Education. And you know, one of the biggest things I think that came out of that, one of the most important parts were these three ideas of vibrant learning, innovation, and collaboration. In 2021, that's when these ideas really started to take shape, really began to have life, had a name, but they weren't clearly defined. The Kentucky Council for Advancing Education actually morphed into, was the foundation for this council. So then on November 29th, 2022, the Kentucky United We Learn Council kicked off. And on that day, I went back and looked at the agenda. I'd forgotten this, but Lawrence County actually presented that day. I was like, wow, I remember that. Now, if we go back, as a matter of fact, we were paired with Carter County that day, as I remember it back. And the focus for that day was talking about portraits of a learner. It was talking about personalized learning. It was giving a district to talk about the work, the vibrant learning was going on in the districts, and then how could this steer what we're doing moving forward? November 29th, 2022. There were more meetings, more work. And then 1 year later, in November 2023, the very first moonshot was developed. It was refined, and the final one was adopted on, I think it was January 2024. To build a prosperous Kentucky, we will launch an accountability system that is meaningful and useful to all learners. Now let's talk about the iterative process. At that point, on May 17th, 2024, the very first prototype was developed for our new accountability model. So we have our moonshot. How's this going to drive the work in our districts? How's this going to make a difference in front of the student? How's this going to change the student experience? How do we use accountability to change that experience? The first draft of prototype 1.0, May 17th, 2024. And we talk about input. We talk about an iterative process. On the 28th, it was shared with Kentucky United We Learn options work group for initial review. So for some of you that are in the room that are new to this, you may have not heard all this process, but those of you who have been those of you who have been here from the beginning, this is just a stroll down memory lane. And at times it might have been a jog, it might have been a sprint, and then sometimes you felt like you were hiking a mountain. But it was such meaningful work. In June, the menu and options work group had a feedback session on June 20th, June 2024. And then we got all the input that we could from this work group. And then on June 28th, which just happened to be my anniversary, by the way, in case anybody's wondering, prototype 2.0 was launched. So again, after listening to input, seeing what people had to say, listening to leaders, listening to practitioners, how does this need to change? Then all of a sudden, we have 2.0, which was completed July 9th, 2024. There's an informational video sent out, superintendent webcast on July 9th, which was my very first webcast as commissioner. And then on July 16th, we shared it with all superintendents, the Board of Education, the Kentucky Association of School Superintendents, KASA, KDE, the district assessment coordinators. It was launched out. That's prototype 2.0. July 16th, it was sent to SCAC, which is our School Curriculum Assessment and Accountability. I always have to look that one to make sure I get that one correct. It was SCAC on July 16th. July 19th, surveys were closed. July 29th, shared prototype was with the council here, more input. Then on July 30th, 3.0. We're just in the prototypes right now, folks. We're just talking about the prototypes. We haven't even got to the frameworks yet. August 7th, shared with the Kentucky Board of Education. And August 8th, we got feedback from our Kentucky Board of Education, and then prototype 4.0. And as you can imagine, August 16th of 2024, now we start getting into, we're just now getting into our graphic. From 2021 to last year, there's already over 3 years of work that laid the foundation to where we are now, that actually launched us, if you will. And then August 20th, we had a survey that went along with this. We sent it out, presented a prototype at the district assessment coordinator meeting, the superintendent webcast. We also shared the prototype at the Continuous Improvement Summit in September. Again, we're getting into fall 2024. We were also talking with some legislators at that time. We hosted the Kentucky United Learning Council, and there were 36 districts that were included in focus groups on where we are now with prototype 4.0. Again, we pulled in the 18 L3s and 18 other districts that were not a part of the work to say, look at 3.0, look at 4.0. Let's get more input. And then we went on to Model Framework 1.0. Now, as we went through all of that, another important piece there, and I'll skip up to 2.0, in January and February, we went on town halls. And part of that town hall work was we started off what those looked like. We'd had a welcome, then we would talk about vibrant learning. We had the Division of Innovation and folks in that group to say, this is what vibrant learning looks like. We were defining it in the town halls. And what was so beautiful about that, there were so many examples within those town halls of districts talking about their vibrant learning experiences to accompany that. But we also had districts to talk about local accountability and action. Now, if you'll go back where you saw what was presented at IJCE, yes, we talked about 4.0. We talked about what the parts of with the state accountability, the local accountability, how that goes together. And Dr. Stafford will be talking about that in just a second. But in each meeting that we've had, the stars of the show are those that present on their local accountability model and how it has changed what they're doing in their communities, what they're doing in their districts. The same thing happened to IJCE. I did a beautiful job of presenting. Maybe not a beautiful job. But the people that really made this hit home were the two gentlemen that sat beside me to say, this is the difference it made in how our community viewed us. This is how it made a difference in how our teachers had input, our students had input, our families had input. But most importantly, this is how it changed the student experience. That's phenomenal. And I will share this too. In my meeting with Dr. Ballinger, Dr. Ballinger had a 98% retention rate in her staff this year. She only had 4 teachers to leave. 3 of them went to Fayette County because they wanted to boost their retirement. It was their last 3 years. And the other one went to coach basketball at a different county. But 98% retention. And everyone in their surveys talked about how what they were doing in their district was making them change, making this a joyful experience for the educators to stay. This is what we want to do. This is how we want to teach. This is how we're making an impact. Her teachers didn't see this as something extra. This was something better. And this is how we can replace the work that we're doing with something that is more meaningful and useful to our students. Now, as we go through, now we're beginning and talk a little bit more about our trajectory as we move forward. We have gone through a study phase. We talked about it with the 36 districts. We talked about it with our surveys. We've gone through and made recommendations to KDE and to KBE. They've come back, and now we're at 4.0, and now we're in the process of engaging the General Assembly. And again, I want to thank our gentleman here, Senator Deneen, Representative Truitt for being here, and also John Ballard. John and I have gotten to be pretty good friends over the last little bit. We text each other quite often. And as a matter of fact, these gentlemen often text me from time to time, too, with questions, which I really appreciate that. But we want to go into the advocacy phase, not only with our legislators, but also with the people in our communities. When they see the difference that a local accountability model makes in where we are, they're going to want what we have, what that person has. I walked out of the meeting with Carrie Ballinger, and Jennifer was with me at that, thinking, man, I wish I sent my kids there. Then I listened to Bullitt County and said, man, I wish I sent my kids there. And then I look at Shelby County. I'm like, wow. But again, all this work is something that's very easy to advocate for because it just makes such a difference. That's why we're at a key point. This is what we're here today for. How do we move forward? How do we be champions? How do we advocate? How do we let people know the good news? One of the things I shared with Jennifer, I really think that that we need to do, and we just talked about this yesterday, day before yesterday, was we need to do a video series on local accountability and how it's made a difference in a district over the next few months. Then that way you have those that's more resources for you as we move forward. Jennifer, again, is Jennifer in here? I hadn't told you that yet, Jen. Congratulations, Director of Communications. Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that. But again, to give you resources to say, hey, look, these are the things that's going on, not only in my district, but in other districts. So at the end of the day, when we walk into the legislative session, there's probably going to be some changes. We understand that. But overall, that local accountability piece, right now, you've seen models of it, and it may happen in districts. What we're saying is that it shall happen in districts. That's the legislative language that we're really looking for as we move forward. Every single district shall have a local accountability model. And then the last thing I'll say before I turn it back over to Dr. Stafford is as we go through this, working with districts, collaboration not only within communities is key, but collaboration across districts is imperative. Because, again, going back to Dr. Ballinger, she said this past week that Henderson County, Bob Lawson, Dr. Lawson, if you know Dr. Lawson, actually came to visit her and sit down one-on-one to talk about what they were doing. Now, in my visual map, and I always do this, you have Rockcastle County and you have Henderson County. In one of our town halls, you had Woodford County that put up all the different logos of districts that worked with them. Woodford County, Logan County, Kenton County, Johnson County, Shelby County. Now, people are checking my geography right now. I know you are. I know you are. But think about how exciting that is. Instead of saying we have a better test score than you, we're trying to lift each other up. We're collaborating together to make it better for all the students in our Commonwealth. And that is one of the primary goals in this accountability model is how do we collaborate? How do we work together to lift everyone up? I don't care what color you are. As a matter of fact, you don't see colors mentioned here. Now, again, we still have the state accountability piece that allows us to help those districts that are CSI, and I think that needs to be there. It's important that we provide districts those opportunities to serve their students better. And that piece is still there, and it can't be gamed with the way it's written right now. But more importantly, we have districts that are working together to lift each other up, to make it a better future, to make it a prosperous Kentucky. People want to launch an accountability system that is meaningful and useful to all learners. When we say all, we're talking about not only our students, most importantly our students, but our teachers, our parents, our business leaders, our faith leaders, our county government. When we say all, we mean all. And I believe we're at that point where we're all in to make this happen. So that being said, I'll turn it over to Dr. Stafford. And before we get started, let's congratulate Dr. Stafford on her new position starting July 1 as the new Associate Commissioner. As a matter of fact, when I was looking at who to pick out for this, Rhonda Sims came in and she said, I will get you in a headlock if you think, no, she didn't say that. No, no, we were like, there's been so much work that, and Dr. Stafford has so much experience. But the thing that impressed me most is about her love for kids and wanted to have something even better for our kids as we move forward. A lot of great work so far, but it just her work and her passion so far made this an easy choice. So that being said, Dr. Stafford.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I really appreciate the opportunity also. So Commissioner Fletcher, I'm just honored to be chosen and to fulfill a role that my friend and colleague and mentor has provided such good guidance and direction. So thank you. Thank you. I want to start out first because we are from assessments. We like to ask questions, right? So I'm going to start out by asking you, what will the world look like in 50 years? So that's 2075, it's 2020 now. What will the world look like? Can you describe it? Any idea what it will look like? Artificial intelligence. We can't even describe it in 50 years, but yet that's the world that we are preparing our students for. A world that's unknown, a world that we cannot sit here as educators, as highly skilled, intelligent people. We can't describe what it will be like. But the students that we are in our classroom, that is the world that we are preparing them for. So we have to give them opportunities to engage in vibrant learning experiences where they have to think critically, engage with others, collaborate, to communicate with people. We have to provide them those durable skills that prepare them for a world that's unknown. So when we talk about vibrant learning experiences, and Dr. Howard talked about creating a Holocaust museum, brought to her these engaging experiences that they had to work together, they had to communicate across disciplines, and that teacher provided that opportunity. And that's what we're really trying to get to, using assessment systems and accountability system, two different systems, to really change the experience and have systems that value those vibrant learning experience and lift up those good things that are happening, and also expand that so that all students, when we talk about all students, every single student has opportunities to engage in meaningful, relevant learning that is preparing them for a world that's unknown. So encouraging and expanding those vibrant learning experiences is part of, and at the center of, the United We Learn Framework 4.0. So when we talk about the framework, we're looking at prioritizing, and Dr. Fletcher mentioned that expanding those vibrant learning experiences, collaborating with communities, and innovation in assessments. So expanding those so that students have agency and it's personalized education for them. This system is student focused, where we focus on students, allowing them and giving them opportunities that they can engage in learning that will propel them and prepare them for that unknown world, that they can utilize their skills and create and get those durable skills, attain those durable skills. That the state test meets the students of where they are, away from a system that provides information just once a year, but multiple times a year, so that students, parents, teachers, educators can then utilize information for instruction the next day, so that we're not waiting all the way until August to get our state results back, but utilizing those interim assessments and that interim assessment system that provides instructional relevant information for those educators. Collaborating with communities, among communities, as also with with our districts as well. Moving away from a competition where we rank each other or rate each other on colors. Moving away from that, collaborating with each other, because we have districts that are doing fantastic work. Think of and imagine a system that we value each other, that working together, that we build networks between our districts, so that if a district in Western Kentucky has been able to overcome an obstacle, that a district in Northern Kentucky or Central or Eastern Kentucky can collaborate with that district, so that we all learn together. We all lift each other up, collaborating and sharing our resources. Collaboration with communities is the key to our systems moving forward. Providing opportunities, inviting our community members in so that community members have the opportunity to have input. Providing opportunities that our stakeholders in our local community, our faith community, our business community, our parents, they can come in and see what's happening, and then they can offer suggestions, financial resources. Superintendent Moracy, she shared at the Northern Kentucky Town Hall. April was there, and she shared an experience and an example where, that I will never forget. She said she had a student that was homeless, living place to place, and through this work, she had community members coming in. They found out, a local business person found out that this student was homeless. That community wrapped their arms around that student. The student was provided housing, provided a job, went and got technical skills, and is now married with a wife, and he just bought a house. He was a welder. I get chills just thinking about it. All because of that local community came together and wrapped their arms around that student. When we work together with our communities, everybody benefits. Students, educators, community, parents, when we work together, that's when we really elevate and we are successful as a community. Local innovation in as far as looking at differences in engaging communities to design that local system so that our local communities know what's best for what their needs are. Engaging those voices so that then they can provide input. Dr. Fletcher mentioned that Rockcastle County has their 7 pillars, but other communities have a different number and varying pillars or goals within their local community system. Logan County has 4. They have academic achievement, growth, and they have one that is around like the social well-being of their students, where they are looking at the amount of students or the percentage of students that are engaged in curricular, co-curricular, or extracurricular activities, because they have decided that, and we know by empirical evidence that their students that are engaged outside of school in those type of activities do better in school. So they're looking at the percentage of students that are engaged in curricular and co-curricular and extracurricular activities, because that community said that that's important. Another district is looking at social emotional supports, in that they're looking at, and their community found that they wanted their schools to provide supports. The communities decide the priorities around their local context, giving them the engaging and then engaging in that decision-making power. And they take ownership of that. I've talked about already the feedback supports and bridging that connection within communities and then across the districts. Looking at the specific framework, we're looking at two distinct systems. One state accountability system and the other local accountability system. Now, the change is over on the local side. That's where the power comes in. There are changes to the state accountability that meets federal requirements. You'll notice that one of the goals of the system for the Kentucky United We Learn was to make it meaningful for each student. So this is a very student-centered accountability system. You'll see that we start meeting federal requirements. We still have the Every Student Succeeds Act that we must follow. That's Every Student Succeeds Act has particular requirements. We call them buckets that we have to meet. And this meets federal requirements for our accountability. And then the last bullet there is about assessments. So starting at the top with accountability, looking first at reading and math from a summative assessment that would be given in the spring. Looking at changes, though, innovative changes for Kentucky, in that we're looking to develop an adaptive model for our state summative assessment so that we can provide information to our students and their parents, as well as give grade level equivalency. That's a big piece and an innovative part of the state summative assessment, to provide information that is relevant for that student so that they can, again, have more information for moving, continuously improving their growth. The second one is growth. Again, student-centered. Looking at, from that state summative on reading and math, where we got the student to where we take the student. So valuing that student on where they start and then where they finish the next year. So looking at, for example, third grade reading on that state summative to fourth grade reading, and see the growth of the student and their experiences in that classroom that lead to that growth for the student. So we're looking at continuous improvement and valuing that, because we get students at different places. So valuing the growth from the student, if they haven't met proficiency yet, valuing that progression from novice to apprentice, or maybe low novice to high novice and farther. So valuing that growth in the education attainment. The next four remain the same. The transition readiness, still valuing our students and their preparedness at the high school level for whether they're going to college, onto college, or if they have career opportunities. Looking at the graduation rate, again, that graduation rate is federally defined. English language progress, looking at the growth of our students and their acquisition of the English language. Now, part of this framework, although it's not here, we have opportunities to change how our English learners then test and are included in accountability. There are a couple of exceptions for our English learners to how they are included in our accountability system. Right now, they are first-year English language students. They don't test the first year, they test the second year, giving them that time frame to achieve English language. The other exemption that we are looking toward in this framework is for our English learners to test the first year, our first year English learners test the first year. That would set kind of a baseline, not included in accountability, but then the second year looking at them as far as growth and then including them in the growth measure. So again, all around student-centered approach for our accountability system. And then the climate and safety survey. We heard very clearly from our stakeholders that we've been listening to for the past few years that student voice was important, that students should have input into an accountability system. So that climate and safety survey remains included in accountability and a small part of the overall score. So those pieces, those first few bullets there, will contribute to the overall score for identification of our schools for our federal classifications, which are continuous school improvement, targeted support and improvement, or additional targeted support and improvement. That is the, if you will, the formula that goes in. All schools would take the same, would have the same measures for that identification of those federal classifications. So all of that would be the same. The last bullet there, our science assessment, is not included. So that's a big change here, because in the federal calculation, you do not see science, social studies, or writing. It's still valued, but it's going to be over in the local accountability system. The science, the federal requirements for science is that it is tested once per grade band and reported. So that's a reduction, more of a streamlined state accountability system. Because again, that's what we heard. We heard that we're going beyond what the federal requires. So we reduce that and we streamline that state accountability system. So science, once per grade band, and we're looking at 5, 8, and 10 for that common assessment of science to be reported. Okay. Looking now at the local accountability system, Commissioner Fletcher.
One thing that I think that I failed to mention a lot is if you look at, we see these as two separate, and Jennifer did a beautiful job talking about the formula versus as we move into local accountability, every local accountability model I've seen so far has the state assessment a part of their local accountability. So student achievement is still part of their local accountability model. So these two, even though they're two separate, every local accountability model I've seen is either included the state assessments a part of their local accountability, or the state assessments with their MAP, STAR, iReady, something of that nature. There's always a student achievement piece. So our districts are not saying that these accountability factors, we're just putting them over to the side. It's all a part of it. The state accountability piece is a part of their local accountability models that we've seen so far. So please keep that in mind as you move into it. You know, some of the things that we hear from people is, are we running away from math? And well, no, we're not. I mean, we can't, we don't want to. We're not running away from accountability, because every district that I've seen so far still includes the state assessment piece as part, or in the state accountability piece, of part of their local accountability. So student achievement is still a large part, and it's been a pillar in every single one that we've seen so far, that it's been a part of their local accountability model. Now, some districts may add in, for example, I think Fleming County does a lot with maybe iReady. You have other districts maybe with MAP. I'm not sure, Bullitt County, iReady. So you have not only your state achievements, your state assessments, but you also have your iReady that goes together for a student achievement piece. So, you know, some of you may not realize that in the room, but I think that's something that as champions, we need to make sure that we're clear when we talk to people. Student achievement is still part of local accountability. When I say student achievement, we're talking about those assessments that are part. Now, to me, the most important part is all those other indicators that can be added, but student achievement is still an important pillar, if you will.
And that's part, when we look at the flexibility in administration, that's part of those locally determined indicators over in the local accountability. So that's where the community has come together and they have said academics is important. That they want not to run away from it, but to hold themselves accountable for it too. And what we're seeing in their local accountability systems is data behind them. We see the data that they're bringing to their local accountability indicators. It's not that they come in, the community comes in and said, yeah, we feel like we're doing pretty good, but they actually have evidence to show where they are. And that honesty and that transparency is appreciated from that local district or the local community, because they can see where the school system is based on those indicators that they've chosen and they've said is important. Not what the state said or what the federal government said, but they own it. And those locally determined indicators. So this piece of local accountability, there's flexibility in administration and inclusion. So they can determine their locally determined indicators. They can determine interim assessments. If they want to utilize their iReady or their STAR or their MAP, they can do that. Or we also have, and you'll hear for the first time me say, we're going to have some opt-in, some options that school districts could opt into. So Framework 4.0 has the opportunity for the state to provide an interim assessment system that is aligned to our Kentucky academic standards and to our end of the year summative assessments. So that what we're looking at is a reduction in testing. Wouldn't we all love that? So looking at a fall administration for an interim assessment in reading and math, a winter administration, and then that spring summative assessment with that adaptive piece that I mentioned earlier wrapped around it. So what our local districts, if they choose to move to the state interim system, they would reduce that spring interim session and just take the state, so that they would be reducing that interim, that spring interim, because everybody has to take the summative assessment anyway, because that's the required piece that is used over here on the federal side. So looking at systems to reduce testing and the time of testing in the classroom. Then also the off-grade testing. That's also going to be an opt-in measure as well. Developing science assessments, grades 3 through 9, or 3 through 10, with those off grades of 3, 4, 6, 7, and 9, so that our districts can utilize those state-developed assessments if they so choose. And also, they could include it in their local accountability system, because we know how important science is moving forward. Also looking at some required options, required but with options into the local accountability system, are those vibrant learning experiences. And we've seen many examples of vibrant learning experience. You heard Dr. Howard talk about one this morning. We see vibrant learning experience, and I think that we're going to have a section here. So include those vibrant learning experiences. At first, how to include that in a local accountability system. Districts may choose to just have a percentage of students that are included in vibrant learning experiences, just a percentage. If they get more advanced, then what they could look at then is the quality of the vibrant learning experiences and how those students are performing within those vibrant learning experiences. So there's a lot of opportunities for decision making amongst our school and districts. And then finally, writing and social studies. Writing and social studies, again, are in that required to be in the accountability system, but the districts have options for that. In Framework 4.0, there is, again, an opt-in to social studies and writing. What we've heard is that districts, schools and districts, educators can create better, more authentic demonstrations of writing in social studies, and they can include that into their accountability system. So whether it's competency-based, authentic demonstrations of learning that they can create, or if they're not there yet, if they're not to a point that they have the capacity to create those, then they can opt into the state writing and social studies until they build that capacity. So again, required, but with options on there. So, and these are aligned to those portrait of a learners to drive, again, the continuous improvement. We realize that not everyone is in the same place for local accountability systems, developing vibrant learning experiences, or those authentic demonstrations. So there needs to be a phase in. So looking at piloting, and there's already work around local accountability systems. We've got innovation specialists that's doing wonderful work within our communities right now. Then expanding that, meeting our districts where they are with the building the capacity around these systems and expanding those, and then finally sustaining it. Now, this Framework 4.0 has been discussed with the School Curriculum Assessment and Accountability Council, the local superintendents, and then also the Kentucky Board of Education approved 3.0 and with a couple of edits. And so the edits that that was made from the 3.0 to 4.0 was we just retitled that right-hand side from federal requirement or federal accountability to state accountability that meets federal requirements. And then we also, in 3.0, we had that opt into the social studies and writing every year. The board didn't want to expand the amount of testing. They wanted to keep it more streamlined. So the measures for inclusion in the local accountability for writing and social studies are at once per grade band. So let me pause there and show you again where we are in this trajectory. We're right now, summer 2025, at the advocacy phase. And we thank you as champions for being here to help with that, because this has been a groundswell. It has been an effort that has started at the local level. We've listened along the way, and we will continue to listen, and we'll continue. And we appreciate you very much and your enthusiasm and your willingness to come into this work and advance this new accountability system, because we want a system that is meaningful and useful to everyone. So let me pause and see if there's any questions.
I really appreciate Dr. Stafford talking about when we look at the interim assessments and trying to reduce testing, when people say you're adding an interim assessment. Let me give you an example from Lawrence County. Lawrence County had 3 assessment windows for MAP. We had a fall administration, a winter administration, and a spring administration, just for MAP. Then we also had to add another assessment window for state accountability. So there were 4 assessment windows that were being utilized in Lawrence County. I believe this is pretty much the case in most districts, if not all. I'm seeing Principal Truitt shake his head yes. Randy, yes. Clay over here. Where's Clay go? Okay. But as we look at that, so you've got 4 testing windows. Now, if you opt into the interim assessments, then it's just 3 assessment windows. A whole assessment window, 2 weeks for a lot of districts would be eliminated of assessments, essentially, or at least it was in Lawrence County. That might be different for other districts. I'm just giving you an example of what that looks like for Lawrence County. And again, these are aligned. We're aligning those into the summative assessment that is from the state end. So when we do our RFP, we would want alignment. We'd also want to give the same level of instructional data that you're getting with iReady now, or with NWEA with MAP, or with STAR and other things. Now, I do know that a lot of districts, they also buy, extra packages with their assessments on the, I don't know exactly what that looks like, to be honest. So that's something we got to work, because we have some districts say, you know what, we've done this with iReady, we want to keep iReady, and that's okay. That's why we left it opt in, because districts have made a huge investment. We understand that. So we want to still allow districts to keep what they're doing if they feel like it's getting the results that they need for their students. So again, just to give you that example of reducing. Now, the other thing too is, I talked to one district, a district that's comparable to Lawrence County. They're spending $200,000 in assessments each year. So we would be asking our General Assembly to pay for that. So by far, the biggest price tag in this is not the local accountability piece. It's not the support from the local accountability. The biggest price tag is the opt-in interim assessments. Okay, so keep that in mind as we move forward. So that's something else as you think about. Yes.
The individual student growth assessment, I guess,
Yes.
from the state accountability. So I know as an educator, we talk about fidelity, and your instruction wants to, you need to align that with your assessment, and all that's based on your state standards. So if a district chooses iReady, MAPS, STAR, or is there still that option for for them to use whatever the state provides that would be their interim assessments, like in the reading and math? So because if I know that as a teacher, if I want my instruction to be fidelic, I want to be looking as well at what the state assessment's going to reflect. And so I want to align my instruction and my interim assessments with that. So I hope I'm explaining myself.
Well, I think so. As a former superintendent, I wouldn't want my teachers going through both systems, because that's more assessment. So I would say it should be one or the other, but technically a district could. I wouldn't recommend it on the opt-in. So then you're looking at, golly, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7 assessment windows if you did it that way. And one of the goals that we have is to reduce assessment. So that's something that we can talk about as we move forward, to say you need to opt in or stay with the other. That's a big question, because we don't want to add more assessments to our students. We really don't. So, but it would be an option as it is now.
So would this state assessment just be given in the spring?
The summative assessment, the state, now we're setting aside the interims, the opt-in part. The state summative assessments will be uniform. They'll be given in the spring only, and that's how we determine growth. And one of the things that we've heard from our legislators is we don't want any gaming. And we also heard that from educators, from superintendents. We don't want gaming. So the reason why we've talked about this as a group is having the growth based on the end of 3rd grade versus the end of 4th grade, because both of those are part of the summative assessments that determine CSI, TSI, things of that nature. If I was a district that my growth was based on what I gave in the fall, and part of an interim assessment and moving forward, I could tank the fall one. I mean, and that happens. I'm sorry. It has happened in the past, not as much. And that's just me being brutally honest. Sometimes you look at people that try to game a system to get more points in growth just because they don't want that label of CSI. This system that would keep that from happening, because you're going to have summative assessment on growth. Now, again, and honestly, that's where we get a lot of our questions in talking with superintendents, is about that state accountability piece to meet federal requirements. But now we're moving to more where we're having questions about the local accountability, which to me is so exciting. I think we're getting past that with our superintendents. Jim can correct me if I'm wrong, that we understand what the state accountability looks like. We understand CSI. Now we're moving into how do we build this vibrant local accountability system that will promote that growth. But again, right now it'd be opt-in, and we would strongly discourage, I would anyway, as commissioner, for someone adding extra assessments from the state level.
And so that would satisfy then the No Child Left Behind and all of that, because you're getting that assessment at the end of the year.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I want to, as we're closing here, I want to share with you 2 data points that Dr. Ballinger shared beyond what Dr. Fletcher has. We mentioned that there was 98% of retention of the staff. At their end of the year survey with Rockcastle County's staff, with all of this focus and the intentionality that they have around these local accountability systems, in their staff survey, their satisfaction survey, their staff was 95% favorable. 95% favorable staff rating when it comes to working within Rockcastle County. That says a lot to me. They're satisfied and they're staying. 98% retention. The other statistic is around their students. Their chronically absentee rate has decreased by 4%. So their students are coming, their chronically absent students are coming because they're engaged in vibrant learning experiences that are relevant to them. So when we say meaningful and useful, it is meaningful and useful, and the work is happening right now, and we can expand it, and we can make it better for their students, our parents, our educators, and our communities.
Sorry, it's for the recording.
I've got 2 questions. One, can you tell me a little bit more about the opt-in with the writing and social studies? I'm concerned that that looks like something that could easily fall to the wayside, especially if we're only looking at that in the grade band years. Maybe I misheard that. And secondly, what's the price tag that we're looking at? Commissioner Fletcher mentioned a big price tag, and if we need to look at districts that are opting in, how are we going to sell this to a legislature that doesn't like to give us a lot of money, or we're tight on money? So how can we, what are we looking at for that?
Sure. So the opt-in piece for the social studies and writing, and again, we would have to work through all these details, right? And we would come back with the options of creating a state level assessment that would be available. So think about the summative assessment in writing and social studies that we have now. It would be online. If we needed paper for accommodations, that it would be available in the system. So you can opt into it. You would have to tell us if that's what you wanted to opt into, but develop that so that it's available. Perhaps it could be administered at will when the student is ready, outside that summative window, so that it would release a little bit of the tension specifically around those upper grade levels, so that our schools and districts meet the students where they are and to meet their needs for administration. Our districts then could create their own types of assessment system. Again, we talked about that as more authentic demonstrations of writing that could be natural within the course of the classroom and so forth, as well as the social studies. So that's a little bit of the vision around those two opt-in pieces. As far as the price tag, we are looking right now into how much it costs our districts. Currently, for interim assessments, we've got some preliminary figures, but we're trying to get our heads around that and to see the difference of what there is currently being spent as opposed to what a statewide systems. We're hoping to get some economies of scale, and so that we could save the districts as well as possibly save the state some with a larger purchase of interim assessments.
Seeing is AI is beginning to make an impact on how much an assessment system will cost when we were talking about interim assessments. So if you look at it with a new assessment, the upfront cost is going to be huge. But after you get into that 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th year, it's actually less. Right now, I think we spend somewhere around $13 million per year at the state level for assessment. That doesn't include what a district is using for their MapStar and iReady. So what our approach is this is what districts are paying now. And if the state legislature will take that, then you can reallocate that funding somewhere else. Now, the interim assessments, again, the interim assessments are the opt-in piece. These are things that we're presenting. These are things that we got back from our districts. After we go across the river and talk a little bit more about it, I don't know how that'll come back because it is a huge price tag. If you look at $13 million per year, probably it would take us, again, I don't want to give exact numbers because these are all preliminary. It would probably take us 7 or 8 years to get to the point where we break even and then start saving money, approximately. And those are all preliminary. And I think Jennifer would agree. Where AI is now, we're learning that the assessment system we're looking at is going to be costing less and less because now we also have options of, we own the test questions that are part of assessments now. So that comes with us. No matter who the vendor is, those questions come with us. But if you're looking at an adaptive model, it's going to take more questions, which means it's going to, now, do we rent those from a company? I know that sounds odd, but do we rent those from a company or do we pull in teachers to write more? So how we handle that's another piece of this too. So in the preliminary numbers we have so far, you're looking at probably, it'd probably take us 7 or 8 years to the point where we kind of break even and then start saving money at that point. I think one of the numbers I saw was, please Jennifer, correct me if I'm wrong, was this would be on the around 3, 4, maybe 5 million a year down the line. Is that about right? Again, well, I've got 2 different spreadsheets I've been looking at. So I'm talking about in year 6 and 7, 7 to 10 million. So it would be a little less.
A little less. I think that's where you got the 3. Less, yes. One more question. Hi, Sam.
And it's kind of twofold coming into that, back to that local interim piece. Is that, because right now in my district, and I think most other districts in the state, we do benchmark assessment testing. Adair County uses iReady for kindergarten through 8th grade. So is this local assessment piece picking up the primary grades as well, particularly in light of House Bill 240, which is requiring retention for kindergarten and 1st grade students? And so is that part of the accountability piece now that K2 would then be included?
So that's a great question. And when we were at the town hall at GREC, that came in from a superintendent as a recommendation. So that the K2 assessments is currently in the framework 4.0 as an opt-in piece, but not part of accountability. Not part of accountability, so that the state would, again, align it to the Kentucky academic standards for those content areas that the school district could opt into, but no part of accountability because those are used for instructional and baseline.
So then that goes into the second part of my question, which is, well, one of the reasons that I really advocated for doing this local interim assessment as part of state accountability was that I wanted the results back with the students that I had now. So when I went to take my principal test, I knew before I left the building whether or not I'd passed or failed. I don't, is that going to happen? And I get if we need to push the summative window back past the, earlier than the last 14 days of the school year. But I think there's a significant piece to knowing for the student and the teacher at the end of that school year, whether or not they were successful on the summative assessment, particularly since one of the draws for most districts with the benchmark testing is that I know after I give the kid the test where they're at. I don't need to wait until tomorrow even to know where they're at. And I can start looking at their data and making intervention plans. I can't do that if I don't get the results for the summative assessment that's tied to the fall and the winter until next October when I can publicly release them.
Right, so that's this balanced assessment system that we're trying to create to provide information along the way with those interim assessments that would be at more immediate feedback. So that's part of the innovative piece around assessments. The challenge for our summative assessments are those on demand because you have to have those scored. And right now, what we've got is we've got human scores doing that, a little of the automated scoring to that, but that those pieces that must be tested because of our Kentucky academic standards, the only way that you can get to some of those standards and to assess those standards are through those higher level questions. So those open responses or in those short answer must be part of that required piece for your summative assessment. So that's the challenge of getting those summative scores back more quickly. But you're right, we have that 14 days, but you do have the assessment data that you get in August, early August. So those you can utilize those to make instructional decisions for the upcoming year.
That's one of the main reasons I advocate for the interim assessments was we wanted to have teachers to have that data throughout the year. So when we got to the end, can we get the constructed response pieces are the parts that I just don't see how we can turn that around. But if we could get the multiple choice pieces, summative pieces out, and that's a possibility. Because right now it's required that we have those constructed pieces. So that's a big question. Again, that was one of the main purposes for the interim portions is that if we give something in the fall that's aligned with the summative at the end, then teacher would have data aligned with the summative in the fall. And then would have data aligned in the winter with what's aligned with the summative. Then of course the summative piece is the thing that we're always going to battle how quickly we can get that out.
All right. Ooh, I'm loud. We are going to end there. Thank you so much, Jennifer. Let's give Jennifer and Dr. Fletcher a hand. All right, we have Karen Perry coming up with UK Next Gen. She's going to share some resources with us. Feel free, if you need to stand up, feel free, stand, grab something to eat or drink. We will take a 10-minute break after this part of our agenda. Karen's going to share some resources with us.
Thanks, Karen. It's always good to see a fellow Karen. Safety in numbers. So my name is Karen Perry. I'm the Executive Director of the UK Center for Next Generation Leadership. I see lots of old friends here in the room and some new faces as well. Was supposed to be joined this morning by Lillian Pace from KnowledgeWorks, who's really been with me on this project, with all of us on this project for quite some time, but she had travel troubles due to the weather. So I'm joined by my partner in crime, partner in making good trouble, Susan Dougal from UK Next Gen as well. We are here to share with you an exciting asset that has been created. You're getting a premiere of a video that we've been working on for several months. This video was funded with a grant from the Chan Zuckerberg Foundation. It's been a joint project with KnowledgeWorks, UK Next Gen, KDE, OVEC helped. Tammy Schiff also helped with this video. This video is intended to be an explainer video for people who are new to this conversation. As Dr. Fletcher mentioned, many Kentuckians have already contributed to this effort. I mean, the framework that Dr. Stafford just walked us through is really a reflection of thousands of Kentuckians having input into this process, right? But there are many thousand Kentuckians who haven't really engaged in this very deeply yet. So this video was created to be an explainer to people who are newer to the conversation. This is the first of a series of videos that are going to be created. This is the explainer. After this, there will be a series of sort of deeper dives into some other topics: local accountability deep dive, assessment deep dive, vibrant learning deeper dive. But this is the explainer video. So I'm going to show it to you. Actually, Susan Dougal is going to give you a prompt for some things to listen for throughout the video. And then we're going to show it to you and then come back together on the other side right before the break. So let me turn it over to Susan to give you an assignment.
Okay, so you're getting ready to watch a video. It's a short video, and these are the things you're going to be thinking about. Now, when you watch the video, you'll see that some of my favorite people are in the video. So one of your activities could be pick out which ones are her favorite. You may or may not be right. We'll see. The other thing you're going to do is you're going to use the Post-it notes that are on your table. And if you don't have enough there, we will bring you some more around. But there should be Post-it notes in the middle. And you're going to think about 4 different things. And you don't have to have an answer for each. But if something hits you that makes you excited about the video, just put an exclamation mark on the Post-it note and what excites you so that we have it coded. The other thing is what resonates with you, something that you're like, oh, that, kind of gives you chills. It really resonates with you. Put a heart on that one so we know that answer. What do you want to know more about? This will really inform those next deep dive videos. So put a question mark and any questions you have, or you think things that need to be explained in more depth in the upcoming videos. And the last one's really important. How might you use this in your community? So if you're going to be a champion or an advocate that we talked about earlier today, how might you use this video in that role in your local community? If you put that one on there, just draw a little house at the top. So we will know which of those belong with which category. Any questions on that? All right, let's take a look.
The current system of assessing and holding students accountable and the school accountable and our whole system accountable wasn't achieving the results that we were looking for. And the question was simply to the community, what do you expect from graduates?
Is it really a standardized test that's one snapshot of one day, of one moment in time? Or is it that they have employability skills, soft skills to make the world a better place and to be a productive member of our society?
In vibrant learning, you start working on your passions while you're in school. You can do internships, and when you do leave and get into the workforce, you're more prepared because you have that experience.
This is our Kentucky moonshot opportunity when it comes to public education. To create a more prosperous Kentucky, we will develop an assessment and accountability system that is meaningful to all learners. Kentucky Not We Learn started in response to what the community was saying across Kentucky, which is we want learning to be more vibrant for students. And how can the assessment and accountability system support that?
Our new accountability model is centered around the idea of vibrant learning. And it does have 2 parts. One is the state accountability portion that meets federal requirements. But the most exciting part is that local accountability portion. What we mean by vibrant learning is that experience that is relevant to the student. Now, I know what I'm doing in my classroom is going to impact what I do in my future.
This is not about less rigor. It's not about running away from test scores. It's just the opposite. That accountability should be localized. It should be important. It should matter. And that's where our urgency should come from.
If you look from one end of the Commonwealth to another, Districts and communities have different priorities. There may be different expectations. There's always the expectation of being able to achieve at grade level in math and reading. But if you graduate from maybe one of our agriculturally based communities, what does that mean for that group? As opposed to maybe there's a community that has more manufacturing, but also to what's the individual need of the student. We've had over 600 community members to attend town halls to talk about the accountability model, what changes they would like to see. But also we listened.
As a long-term goal of mine, I'd like to see where students are able to enter the workforce with certifications and they're job ready, career ready.
The parents will see that their kids are more marketable and they'll be able to go out and become gainfully employed. And that's what we want. That's the only way we're going to grow our communities.
Good school supports each individual student's goal, not just a standard, but supports what future they have in mind for themselves.
There's still an emphasis on being up to par with certain standards, but I feel like these like more local frameworks actually value the community needs and certain needs that students have.
At my school, we have teaching pathways, so I'm in the education pathway, so I go every day during 4th and 5th period to the Head Start, and I help there, and it's amazing.
We work over in Bauchi State, Nigeria. That's our touch point. We worked this previous year with a welding business owner. It's kind of bringing his business to life. It's not every day that you're able to work in Nigeria as a student in Round County, Kentucky.
We have a community that does tiny house projects. You have an engineering class that designs a tiny house, a carpentry class that builds the tiny house, an electricity class that wires it, art class that paints it, a business class that markets it, and then puts it into an auction, sells it. They take the profit and then invest it into the next tiny house project. That is collaboration, that is communication, that is vibrant learning at some of its finest. The beauty of this new accountability model, it wasn't state mandated. It began at the local level. It began with stories in local districts of growing into defenses of learning with profiles of a learner.
I think students are getting to really see why they're learning what they're learning and being able to put the personal touch on it.
And I have seen how defenses help a student to really flourish and show what they know. And I'm excited that the rest of the state gets to do that now.
I absolutely love the idea of this framework. I really am optimistic for how these communities are going to engage.
If you don't have a meaning, your action won't last long. So in my case, for example, English is not my first language. It takes me longer to comprehend. So just having something that can be more hands-on and closest to what you actually like will drive them longer than anything else.
Taking a step back and shifting our accountability model to actually look at change of an individual over time and to value vibrant learning where they can demonstrate in different ways through various mediums that they are brilliant, because our kids are brilliant. That's critical. That's where we start seeing change. And I'm excited that Kentucky's leading that work.
Okay, so as we prepare for your break, here's what we'd like for you to do. If you didn't get a chance because you were engaged in the video, to take some notes. What excites you, what resonates with you, what do you want to know more about, and how might you share it? Make a couple of those notes on your table. And before you move to break, and you all can kind of have conversation as you move, if you will just categorize those on your table. So in one stack, put all the exclamation marks, question marks in another, hearts in one stack, and houses in the other. Take a few notes so we can use that as feedback moving forward on the use of the video. And if you want to guess who my favorite person was, you can put that on another Post-it note.
Her daughter was that.
No, but she's not my favorite, Karen. It was you.
Okay, as we get ready to move to break, these keys were left in the bathroom, so if they belong to you, please let me know. They have a SESC lanyard on them. Oh, perfect. All right.
All right, we are ready for our break. We've got about 10 minutes. If you all come back about 10:30, we'll get started again. Thank you all. We're going to learn a little bit more this morning about local accountability from Sarah Snipes, who is the director in our Division of Innovation, and some other folks from her team. So if we can all come back together. If you can hear me speaking, clap once. If you can hear me speaking, clap twice. Thank you. All right, Sarah.
Well, good morning. We are so excited to continue this conversation around vibrant learning experiences. And before I give you kind of a general flow for the next hour with our team, want to really ground ourselves back in the definition that was created by the council and many of you here in this room today. When we go on the road and talk to schools, districts, community partners, and other organizations about vibrant learning, we always lead with this definition. Everything our team does is grounded in this KUWL Council definition of vibrant learning experiences. And by far my favorite part of that is that this definition was created collaboratively with you, but also grounded in the experience that you had and were witness to for students in schools across Kentucky. So if you were not part of our Vibrant Learning Experiences Subcommittee, I just want to remind folks that this definition came on the heels of kind of a statewide tour going around the state, going to different districts and schools, witnessing student learning in a variety of contexts, and coming back to the table to come up with a definition by which we now lead this work. And I want to channel my Dr. Lou Young here from the last Kentucky Board of Education meeting and not glaze over that very first part of the phrase, in partnership with families and communities. The examples I'm going to quickly go over with you in a moment are grounded in that partnership, and I hope you see that as a thread throughout. But I also hope you see the things in bold here, that these examples are relevant and they are authentic to the world our students are a part of. It is not waiting for them to graduate to become a part of their community. It is grounded now in the experience and the expertise they can bring to the community that they serve even now. It also is joyful. I think we've heard a lot today already about the fact that vibrant learning experiences are a big reason why kids want to come to school. It honors students' cultural wealth, their gifts and interests, and sees them as the brilliant. I love that we heard that quote out of JCPS earlier in the video, that they are brilliant and they bring with them their own wealth of knowledge, regardless of the background or context or community that they come from. And vibrant learning is not in addition to core content knowledge and our rigorous academic standards. It is the way that students acquire that core knowledge and apply it beyond any bubble sheet and demonstrate their learning in those authentic ways that are personalized products to them. So in your materials that you have with the slide deck that's available to you in printed form, please feel free to reference those as we go along. But want to frame this hour with you and our team in thinking that I'm first going to give you some classroom level examples of what Kentucky teachers around the state have done this year. These are teacher-based examples. We wanted to highlight them specifically for the work that they're doing, but these aren't all inclusive. For every one teacher we show, there are 50 more in that district alone who are doing that work. So want to make sure that we preface that. We couldn't possibly, our whole convening today, quite honestly, maybe if we had our choice, would have just been vibrant learning examples, but we wanted to give you a nice sampling. After I talk about some classroom level examples, our regional innovation specialist and program manager, Robert Meacham, are going to talk a little bit, zoomed out a little bit to a regional approach. What is this looking like across districts, across regions in our state? And then we're going to kind of zoom out a little bit more. And Dr. Rob Collins from our team and Susan Dougal are going to talk to you about, okay, not everyone's here yet. So now what? How are we helping bridge that gap and get more teachers, more school leaders, more district leaders engaged in this work? So this first example that we have here comes from Kathy Salmon's classroom out of Fayette County. And this is actually at Tates Creek High School. And what I want you to see in this particular example is how Kathy has taken her science standards and she has brought community expertise in a way that students are solving for real problems in Lexington in the moment. These aren't hypothetical situations. This is a situation that's currently impacting their community, and the students themselves are using their science knowledge and the skills that they've acquired to make a real-time difference in Fayette County. So in this particular example, Kathy had Live Lex Green come in and help them do waste management, sorting, learn about some of the processes that the city's involved in with recycling and waste management. And then the students themselves had to demonstrate mastery of their science standards and concepts by developing some community solutions. Another example, this is middle school out of Shelby County, Marnell C. Mormon, Justin Gadd. Believe it or not, Dungeons and Dragons is not just what I'm going to do morning with a group of friends. It's happening in Shelby County schools. My husband will tell you first thing when I share stories like this, he's like, man, where was this when I was in school? Because I probably would want to stick around a little bit longer. If you've never played D&D, you'll learn real quick how to do math, creative writing, collaboration, and just about anything you'd see in a portrait of a learner around the state. So Justin takes this really creative approach where he teaches the Oregon Trail and Manifest Destiny, Westward Expansion, by having students take on the roles of people who lived in that time period. And they take on the decision making based on various factors. They're doing math, they're having to calculate and make decisions based on what that person would have done by understanding the historical context of that person. And this, of course, as I mentioned, is touching on all of those portrait of a learner skills like problem solving, creativity, and collaboration, in addition to learning about history, math, and writing. We also see vibrant learning examples often around the states of learning exhibitions. Who in here remembers when we brought defenses of learning examples to the KUWL Council? So if you're familiar, students defending their learning in front of a community panel, having evidence of how they demonstrate portrait of a learner competencies throughout the year. Well, exhibitions are a little bit of informal practice to that, if you will. It's a way that students can get up in front of community and parents and show what they've learned. Usually that centers around a particular project in their class. And in this case, in Bardstown Elementary, Melissa Kaiser actually took students and family members with the help of a local planetarium out to do a nighttime stargazing event as kind of a teaser for an exhibition where students shared with their families work and learning they had done with writing around being an astronaut aboard the International Space Station. And what I love about this example too is that this particular teacher made this experience accessible to families. She not only engaged them in the exhibition night, she involved them in the community partnership element with the planetarium, and to make sure that they could be meaningful contributors to this experience, she provided sample prompts and questions so that families could ask their students and engage with them when they were learning about their coursework. Learning rooted in local context. Rowan County Senior High School, Lindsay Johnson partnered with Morehead State University and brought community leaders, city council members, university professionals, magistrates to meet with high school students where they looked at historical documents that were right there from the local community in Morehead. And they transformed, after learning more about their own heritage from members of their community, they transformed historical artifacts into original poetry with the help and partnership of those community members. Dana Newland, out of my former school district, Frankfort Independent, at 2nd Street School. I will say, if you want to know more about this particular example, Kentucky Teacher recently did a fantastic write-up about this. She leads a hands-on agricultural experience. Parents go nuts over this and say, my kid wouldn't eat anything green until they were in Miss Newland's class. And students themselves are planting seeds, they're working with compost, and all of this is done cross-curricular through math, science, reading, a variety of rigorous Kentucky academic standards in the context of agriculture. And this is a K-8 school. Students collaborate with local farmers and their cafeteria to make sure that the things that they grow are not only tasted and enjoyed by themselves, but by a larger portion of their school community. And a final example here comes out of Marshall Middle School. Kelly Locker recognized that as an English teacher, her students needed to learn the drafting process, how to write and publish a piece of writing, whether it's informational, fiction, poetry. That's part of her academic standards each year. But in taking the liberty to be creative with this and ground the student learning in an authentic context, she recognized that all of her students had experienced the tragic tornadoes that hit Western Kentucky a few years ago. And so taking that as a shared lived example in her community, her students actually published a book after going out into their community to learn not about their own experiences, but also from emergency personnel, others who live through the residential areas impacted. And so they wrote and published this book as fiction, poetry, and informational writing. And they actually presented this to Governor Beshear. And as a result of that, the funding that is coming from this book, I'm not getting a kickback, but I believe you can buy this on Amazon right now. Proceeds from those sales will bring those students next legislative session to share this with our legislators at the Capitol. And so civic engagement while they're learning the standards that are already intended for them each year. Yes, sir.
First of all, I want to apologize to every KDE staff member that I interrupt today. But I have to share one more. I do. Jennifer, I apologize. You're used to it through the town halls. You're good. I appreciate that. Sarah, I apologize. But I have to tell you about one of the beautiful things about being commissioner is seeing this in action. And I want to tell you one more story. If you haven't heard of the Freight Box Challenge, in Madisonville, North Hopkins, there is a group of students, their ag class, which we went to visit Madisonville, North Hopkins. And when we went in, the students were in their ag classes learning trigonometry. The commissioner, as a former math teacher, had the opportunity to teach a little trigonometry. From there, we went into a carpentry class and we were working on framing for a freight box. What this school has done is they partnered, they got a grant to do a freight box challenge where they get one of those 40-foot freight boxes that we see on barges all the time. They reframed the inside of it into a medical office. That medical office now sits in Liberia. It is the only medical office in that community. They've learned about the culture of Liberia, the Civil War, the history of Liberia. They learned how to design a building, design an inside medical office. And not only that, they did their second freight box by learning from that community to say, this is how we need it changed. There are babies being delivered in this medical office, and these are the only medical offices in these communities in Liberia. And this is happening in Kentucky. That's vibrant learning. You're becoming a global learner. You're becoming, you're making a difference in not only in your local community, but in your system. And the pride that this community takes in that. But those are just some of the stories. Like I didn't know this story until just recently. I saw, I think Sarah shared this in another group. But these are beautiful stories of vibrant learning that's going on across our communities. So
we said you could hang on to that one if you really. Just before I pass it over to Robert, I want to mention a few things. We are so fortunate in our team to see this every day. I wouldn't trade my job for anything because our team gets to be out not only witnessing this, but supporting and helping make it possible. But a few years ago, if we had been showing you these examples, they would have been spread out, sprinkled kind of spotlights, if you will, pockets of districts. That is just not the case right now. Not everyone's there, don't get me wrong, but we're going to talk to you a little bit about how we're supporting that. But also, I think our teachers are seeing the shift. They are excited about the signaling from the state around where this could go. And you don't hear so much anymore teachers saying, I would love to, but that doesn't teach them how to answer their multiple choice tests and on demand in a few weeks, and I have to do that. We just don't hear that to the same extent that we were a few years ago. They're not feeling the same type of pressure because there's this greater acceptance of the type of deeper learning that we want and appreciate for each and every student. So we still have a long way to go, but our team would love to tell you a little bit more about that. The only other thing I'd like to tell you is if you think back to the context of defenses of learning, the examples I shared with you today, think about those as kind of the toolkit fillers. Before a student stands up in front of a panel at the end of the year to defend their learning and what the skills that they've acquired and the knowledge they've learned, these experiences would be the examples that they share to that panel. These students in Marshall County would stand up in front of their community and tell them about that experience, specifically the academic content and the knowledge and skills that they gained and how it will help them in their future. So think about that in connection to our defenses. Our program manager, Robert Meacham, is going to introduce you to our regional innovation specialist.
Awesome. So yeah, really thrilled to be able to work with just awesome team of regional innovation specialists. Many of you, if you're from a district, you probably know their name very well because they've been absolutely wearing out your email inbox. But that was part of my push to them was to do that. And so at our previous convening, we brought our regional innovation specialists to talk about like just the data behind just the movement of what's going on, about what they're actively seeing in the field. So today we're going to bring our innovation specialists up to share by pillar like what the engagement is at the regional level. So we're really excited about that. So one of the things that our innovation specialists are really focused on is the implementation of this KUWL vision. That has become a major part of their language out in the field is just how do we implement the portrait of a learner? How do we implement vibrant learning experiences? How do we implement these innovative assessments, especially around performance assessment and competency-based assessments? And then also now getting into local accountability. So at the start of their work over the last year, they were really focused on let's make sure that we've got as many portraits out there that are either fully fleshed out or maybe they're in the process. Working with communities to make sure that those are just embedded with what the community desires, and then they started seeing as they were out there doing those things, they started saying, hey, we really want to we're hearing this vibrant learning, this VLE thing that everybody's talked about, like what does that actually look like in the classroom? And so a lot of them have, so we've started getting involved in vibrant learning collaboratives and vibrant learning professional learning opportunities in the co-ops. And so now we're moving right along. So this is one of the things that we like to show you is just the impact of the work of 4 brave souls across 171 districts. And they are, we like to do this and to put the numbers to just because they get to see it when they, they kind of come back and report to me like this is how we can kind of quantify the impact because it can be very daunting. And if you would have told them at the beginning of the year that they would have the impact that they had, that they would have at this point, they would definitely not believed that because many a direct report where they're like, nobody's talking to me. I said, just wait. It's going to happen. And now they're like, I've got no days left in July for all the people that want to talk to me. So that's true. And so it is a wave. It's something that is becoming, districts start to nudge their elbow partners, and their cross county connections, and they say, wait, are you doing this? Because this, we're really excited about this. So one of the things that I'm going to direct you right down to the bottom of that list is, over 200 sessions that the regional innovation specialists have facilitated either individually or together around all 4 of the focus areas just in this first year of the grant work. So they are So that they are impacting, they're impacting the student experience by working at the regional level. And so we're really excited about that. So I'm going to just let each one of them introduce themselves as they come up to kind of introduce their little portion. Obviously, all 4 of them work in each 4 of these, but they're going to divide up the pillars of work individually. So.
Good morning. Oh, wow, that's loud. Okay, sorry, I'm a middle school teacher. I have a big voice. Good morning, I'm Crystal Doolin. I'm the Regional Innovation Specialist in the Southeast. I serve 38 districts in that area of the state. As Robert said, one of the many things that we do with a lot of our time is support districts around the creation and implementation of a portrait of a learner. So, yeah, you're on there. So that can look very different from district to district, because one of the really unique opportunities that we have is to customize what districts get from us based on what they need. So when I talk to a district, they're like, okay, what can you do for me? And my question is, what do you need? What do you need to move this work forward? And that's where we work from. And we don't go at the same pace from district to district. We do it based on the pace that they're comfortable with. So this can look like a lot of different things, everything from co-facilitating community meetings, which is often kind of daunting for districts, leading strategic planning sessions, helping them create performance outcomes and indicators, all the way up to refining existing portraits in districts. I was working with a district last week who created their portrait, but after we had a conversation and from what they were hearing around the state, they weren't really satisfied with the level of community involvement that they had initially in creating that portrait. So we basically backed up a little bit and kind of did a reset and brought that portrait to the table because we wanted to honor that work, and brought I think they had 50 plus community members there to give input. Where were the gaps and holes and what were they hoping to see, things like that. So we're moving into the survey mode now with that, and they're going to come out with a much stronger portrait. So great things. You can see here at the bottom how that's progressing across the state with the number of districts in the starting, spreading, and sustaining phases now. And those numbers have changed dramatically since we spoke to you last October. One really awesome example of the impact of this work, especially for me, because this is in my region, is Letcher County. So Letcher County started their work in September of 2024. They contacted me or responded after I'd reached out several times, as we do with districts, and were super interested in learning about the work. As soon as we had a meeting and discussed it, they were all in. They said, let's go. We're ready to do this. We want this portrait done by Christmas so we can make some plans moving forward and get the ball rolling. One thing I will say about what Letcher County did, and every district does this in different ways, but I guess it's because they were the first district I worked with. They were so intentional about everything they did, especially in their planning for these community meetings. Everything from the food, like the evening meal that they prepared. We had full-on Thanksgiving dinner at one of these things. Everything from that to the environment. They had an area set up for children, if anyone had to bring their kids with them, so somebody could sit with them while they, did activities or colored or whatever. They were so intentional about making sure people felt comfortable and that they were able to express what they wanted to in that time and felt valued as part of the conversation. So the result of that, there were, like it says here, there were over 50 people at their meeting as well. And it always tickles me when there's that many people there, because the district's like, we didn't think they'd show up. I'm like, I told you they would. So they were excited about that. And the result is they have a really powerful portrait of a learner that has community buy-in already built into it. But even better, after that work started, other districts around them, literally bordering Letcher, started picking up on it. Now 5 other districts who are either a border county with Letcher or an independent in one of those counties either already has finished their portrait, they did it this year, or they're in the middle of the beginning of the work. So that one portrait kicking off and people talking, literally, one of the superintendents called me and said, the superintendent in Letcher County and I had a conversation yesterday. She told me to call you. and we were off and running. So it's catching on like wildfire, not just in Letcher, in that area, but all over the state. So we have all these just great momentum moving across the state, all around what do we want students to know, be able to do, and be like, and bringing in the community for that conversation. So it's amazing work. We're really excited about it, as you can tell.
So as you can see, based on all the things we've already talked about today, vibrant learning experiences and spreading that good news around the state is a huge part of what we're doing. And I feel like based on all of the great things we've already seen between the video and what Sarah and Robert shared, I could probably just pass the mic at this point. But the vibrant learning experiences, they really are at the heart of the work that we're doing across the state. Even with what Crystal said about portrait work, when we talk to districts about the portrait, it ties in with vibrant learning. How do we incorporate these competencies that we're creating now into our classrooms? Well, that comes through vibrant learning experiences. Let's talk about that. When we support districts and serve on panels and give feedback on learning defenses, as Sarah said, how do we really make our learning defenses more rich? How do we make our exhibitions more meaningful? And how do we make sure that students aren't just saying the same thing over and over? Well, that comes from better and richer and more vibrant learning experiences. And so it's the thread that ties all of the things that we're doing. And so we have been providing professional development sessions, trainings, classroom visits and feedback. We've served on panels for learning defenses and given feedback on things like that, supporting planning for districts, strategic planning for how we can incorporate and implement this into classrooms. So we've done a lot of work on vibrant learning this year, even not just vibrant learning specifically, but even kind of branches off of that. So specific examples of vibrant learning, or even vibrant learning experiences in specific content level classes. And so really trying to break that down so that everybody has access to hearing about this and what it looks like for them as an individual teacher. And again, you can see the snapshot at the bottom. This has grown a ton this year, but the big goal for us is really this year just creating a common language across the state so that everybody understands what this is, what it looks like, and how they can actually implement it into their classrooms. Another impact example, this one is one from my region in the West. I didn't introduce myself, sorry. That's my bad. I'm Callie Colley. I am the Regional Innovation Specialist for the West. So 47 districts from Meade County down the Elizabethtown line down to Allen County and then everything over. So my impact example is actually all the way to the very, very far west in Fulton Independent. They had a lot of leadership changes this year in their district. And they came in really energized and excited about this work. And they noticed that Fulton Independent does have a portrait, but it's a poster on a wall right now. We had a conversation at the beginning of the year and they were like, I don't know that any of the teachers really even know the competencies or that we even have one. And so I was able to come in and talk with them about a plan. And throughout the course of the year, I was able to be a part of the process of training every single teacher in Fulton Independent in vibrant learning experiences and providing those for students. And so they're really energized. We have a plan going forward for next year that really, this plan paints a clear picture of where they want to go. And they're thinking big and they want to go towards a local accountability model for Fulton Independent. And they have some great ideas. And so just like Crystal said, taking that portrait and really bringing energy back into it through these vibrant learning experiences is a huge part of the work that we're trying to do.
And that brings us on to performance assessment. Hello, my name is Crystal Conway Cunningham. I go by C Squared. I have the Central, and yes, I'm a nerd, sorry. But I serve the Central / Northern Kentucky region for the Regional Innovation Specialist. So as far as performance assessments, we know that teachers want more than just test prep help. They actually want to have students take ownership of their learning. And so with that, we actually work with them hand in hand, assisting them with everything from capstone learning all the way to helping their students do defenses of learning. We actually pull up our sleeves and we get in and help them with those interdisciplinary skills. And we help make the work easier for them. So that way it doesn't feel like just another thing that they have to do and that's on their plate. We also assist with them making sure that this is something that's just not a one-time thing, but a long-lasting thing that's sustainable, that will go on for years and years down the line. And as you see, here's our snapshot as well. And this has grown not only from since October, but also since February when I started this position. One example within my region is Danville Independent Schools. So they actually revised their 2024-2029 strategic plan. And with that revision, they decided to actually implement more portrait of a learner proficiencies. They decided to actually utilize the fact that their school is a full service community school and actually take their students into the community. So they don't always just host their performance assessments within their building, but they actually go to the public libraries. They go to different community centers. So that way their students are actually the heart of the community, because at the end of the day, their students are going to be the future of Danville, or Boyle County, sorry. But they work not only with your middle schoolers and high schools, but they also work with their primary students as well. There were several RIS team members that we actually went to see their K through 2 showcases, where students were actually going in and they were doing student-led conferences. You've seen kindergartners so excited and showing their parents, hey, look, here's what we're doing here. They got to showcase their imagination corner, where they pretend made their families a meal. They show where they do their counting to tens at. They showcase even what they do with their calendar each and every day. So to see that excitement on their faces as kindergartners was amazing. When you got up to the first and second grade classrooms, you've seen students that were actually reading a book to their parents and stuff, and parents just beaming with excitement, like, wow, this is my student. So they're actually creating those meaningful experiences where students are excited not only to show up to school each day, but actually to showcase their learning to their parents and to their families. No longer are those families hearing, oh, I didn't do anything in school today, or I didn't do nothing. They're actually saying, oh man, we learned about the solar system today, and we actually did a hands-on activity with this, or we had a community leader come in and work with us. So those hands-on experiences are making that learning more meaningful to the students. And with this, we had several southeastern Kentucky schools that came, as well as central Kentucky schools that came, that actually went back to their districts and like, how can we start implementing something like that? Because a lot of times we hear people doing this at the middle school level, we hear people doing it at the high school level, but we rarely ever hear them doing this at the primary level. So man, they can do this. They can handle this. Like, they are capable if we actually give them the opportunity to do so. Thank you.
I'm Alexa Harden, and I am the Regional Innovation Specialist for Northern and Eastern Kentucky. So I serve independent districts in the north, all the way to Pike County, and then back over to Clark. So 44 districts there. And for my portion, we're going to look a little bit at local accountability, terms that we've heard a lot this morning. And if you see those numbers, or that snapshot is a little lower, and that's fully to be expected right now. We have so many districts that have grown in developing their portrait of a learner, implementing their portrait of a learner, understanding and training their teachers, and embedding vibrant learning experiences into their classrooms. And so now we're really at the point where we say, okay, how does it all fit? How do we take this portrait? How do we take these vibrant learning experiences, and how do we transform that and make that a part of this local accountability model? And we have some districts that are front runners and have already really dabbled in that work, and are setting some great examples for other districts to learn from. But our team as a whole, we're really in that process of offering lots of professional learning. So we collaborate with co-ops and host regional professional learning sessions, some PD series that we're going to be offering this upcoming year, along with sessions specifically for districts. So if there's something, just like Crystal had mentioned, tailoring to individual district needs, we're doing that as well. When you start thinking about local accountability, what I think really makes teachers and district leaders start to feel better about it is If you have a portrait and you developed your portrait with your community, that's local accountability. That's listening. That is working with your community, hearing their needs and responding to them and responding to those needs as a school. So we're definitely on the right track. I think those numbers are going to drastically increase over the next little bit because people are now at the point where they're ready for it. And so our impact example that we have here is Shelby County. So in the fall, Shelby County was our site host for our L3 Community of Practice and our ILN, or Innovative Learning Network, kickoff. So Shelby County hosted districts from all across the Commonwealth. And not only did those districts get to hear from district leaders, but they also got to hear from school leaders, from teachers, go to schools and seeing it in action, because we know at the end of the day, if our local accountability system isn't transforming the student experience, then we're missing the mark. And Shelby County did such a fantastic job with that. And one thing that we're hearing too is our L3 districts want more in-person time together. They want more time together to pick each other's brains, use each other as thought partners, and to, even though they may be ahead in the work, they know that they have room to grow too, and they want to continue to make that better for their communities. And I do have one more example that I'm going to share. We have some new champions in the room, and we got to kind of mingle this morning. And one of our new champions is Bracken County, and they are actually from my region. And I want to spotlight some of the work that they're doing in this area as well. So in working with their district all last year, one of the things that they came to me and said was, we need to see it. We want to see it in action. What does it look like? How do all these moving parts fit together? And so we were able to collaborate with 2 L3 districts and then another district that was actually not an L3 district, but had done some of the work. And we were able to go to 2 in-person site visits and 1 virtual visit as well. And during those times, districts are able to leave with resources, leave with ideas, but the beauty of the local accountability work is it's not copy paste. Yes, they left with lots of materials, lots of ideas, lots of great videos of student defenses of learning, but now they get to take it back to their district, and now they get to make it theirs and make it meaningful to Bracken County and the students in their district and their community. So again, lots of really exciting work with local accountability. We know we have some room to grow in that area, but our team is really confident that we're going to see those numbers continue to rise as well.
Again, I'm just happy that I work with amazing people that are, their travel is it's crazy, crisscrossing the state. So based on what Alexa just shared, that's exactly right. It's the power of collaboration. Dr. Fletcher has already mentioned it, and he brings it up at a lot of places. Woodford County's slide that showed all of the different districts, but I could show, like Alexa could show you a Bracken County slide that has all of the districts that you could show a Rowan County slide that has, dozens of districts that have gone to Rowan County to see the excellent work that's going on there. So we are seeing a ton of collaboration around all of these things. And in the essence of time, I'm gonna keep on rolling because I want to talk about looking ahead and sustaining this momentum that we're talking about. So we, as the regional innovation team and as the division of innovation, we are really focused on just continuing the foundational work. We have districts that are just getting on board, so they're working the foundations. We have districts, we have dozens of districts that are seeing this work and they're saying, you know what, it was the poster on the wall that was created 4 years ago, and we need to revise this because not enough community was involved. That's happening all over the place. So that's foundational work. We are working to expand those performance assessment systems, showing districts, and this is where the collaboration comes in, because we can teach professional learning on how to do these showcases and how to do these exhibitions, but as well as I do, as a district that says, no, let me see it. Let me see it in action. And so they're seeing what's happening in Danville Independent with a K-2 showcase, or they're going to Spencer County and watching those senior defenses, and there's so many districts that are opening their doors, which is phenomenal. So the was already mentioned, we're starting a in collaboration with the co-ops, doing a pathway to local accountability professional learning series throughout the fall. So we're excited to extend that. And then we're also really thrilled about something that's going on in July. It started as an idea really with the inspiration of UK Next Gen and their momentum from last year, and then momentum actually from last week. With their inspiration, and I just said, let's take this on the road. Let's take it regionally. So we have the Vibrant Learning Collaboratives that are happening across 4 districts regionally. So Clark County, Laurel County, Nelson County, and Hopkins County are hosting. So we've actually talked to these district leaders and said, we want to host a Vibrant Learning Collaborative in your community. And they're like, yes, we want this. And as of this morning, we have 515 teachers that have registered for these Vibrant Learning Collaboratives. Like this is, I mean, it is just so much so that when I pitched the idea to them, they're like, yeah, okay, here's Meacham with another idea. And then they're like, oh my goodness, this is getting huge, right? So we're really excited about this. It just shows the excitement that's going, especially around vibrant learning. The teachers really desire this. School leaders are a desire to learn more, and not just to highlight something that we're doing, but Jefferson County hosted their own their academic innovation. Academic Innovation Summit. It was a 2 or 3 day event for their staff. Oldham County's doing a vibrant learning session for all of their staff, for their 900 staff members in August. So like districts are starting to do their own. We're hosting these, so the movement is going strong, and we're really excited about this. So I'm going to step out of the way and move on to, like Sarah had mentioned, kind of taking it down to that local accountability, and we're really excited about this, the guide that Dr. Collins and Susan are going to present to you. So.
Alrighty, thank you. One of the cool things about being part of the Division of Innovation is we get to be a roving and maybe slightly raving band of vibrant learning evangelists. So because of that, we are a little behind on time, so forgive me if I'm brief and summary. My name is Dr. Rob Collins. I work as a program consultant with the Division of Innovation. I have the pleasure of leading the Kentucky Portrait of a Learner, the Kentucky Innovative Teacher Fellowship, some examples of classrooms you saw when Sarah was sharing, and then most importantly for this meeting, the local laboratories of learning, or our L3 districts. So one thing that we've seen across the 4 years that our L3s have really been designing prototypes of local accountability and assessment systems is that this work has grown so much. It's really caught wildfire at this point, and there is really a huge desire to learn from others and to uplift shared learning across the entire Commonwealth, from east to west, north to south. As part of that, though, we're seeing that our 18 districts and some of the other districts that have joined into the work, it still is a small amount of probably 30 or some districts that are really deeply engaged with each other. And we're seeing as this new assessment and accountability framework is coming to a head in the next year or two, there's space to expand the supports that we offer as a division, as a department, and also as a peer-to-peer network. So our team for the last 2 months has been working on a draft of a local accountability and assessment guide and toolkit. And we're here today to really talk to you about the reason behind that toolkit, what it consists of. Susan will speak a little bit about the design and the local accountability continuum that has inspired the toolkit. And then we'll have Dr. Brandy Howard join us to talk about the district perspective in terms of using this guide and toolkit. So the purpose and audience of this toolkit is just to help school leaders pick up and start doing the work of local accountability in their spaces. So to give them a tangible artifact that has examples from districts across the state that have been doing this work, templates of how they've implemented that work, like community meetings, like performance assessment systems, and to really give them essentially a step-by-step guide. Here's how you take this, apply it to your context, and make it happen in your space. One thing I do want to say, this isn't just a guide we're putting out saying read it and do it. There will be a robust system of supports from our division and from the department as well. So this is really part of a network of collaborative and shared learning. The audience is generally district leaders, superintendents, chief academic officers, but also folks involved in the work of local accountability. So we have community leaders, faith leaders, government officials. It's also useful, of course, to principals, teacher leaders, and also hopefully students as well. Why it matters is, I think we've articulated this. We believe a good local system that's defined in community values leads to a deeper, broader educational experience and therefore educational outcomes for students. What's inside? We do have a working definition of local accountability, some design and technical quality essentials and elements. We do have a theory of change and aspirational elements in there as well, and phase-by-phase action steps, which I'm going to let Ms. Dougal speak to in a moment. But first, I do want to say you have this copy of this draft in your materials with you today. We are going to ask you to be a critical friend with us. So to really look at it deeply, discuss with your partners, and to give us feedback so that we can make it useful from your perspective and context. And with that said, I'll turn it over to facilitator extraordinaire, Susan Dougal.
Thank you. Before I get started on this, just to reference what Rob was talking about, I just want to, Dr. Fletcher talked this morning about that whole timeline. And I feel like I've been a part of that timeline from the beginning as a district L3 lead, and then I was on the original coalition. And one of the things that stands out to me along this whole time is just the importance of partnership and collaboration. When you look across the room, we have co-op people, we have partners from across the country. Every single action that has happened in that timeline is because of partnership and collaboration. And I think we need to keep that in mind as we move forward. When we think about the habits of co-creation and inclusion, the best things that have happened in our work together have been in that co-creative element. So this is another one of those. So this document that we're going to look at today is a partnership with UK Next Gen and KDE and OVEX Elevate Ed, but taking the expertise and experience of each one of those to make these things happen, just like all the other parts of what we've been doing in this school council. So also the districts in the room and all the districts that were represented on those slides before. I can look across the room and see the people who I've learned from when I work in districts, and we appreciate that. And you're all a part of this. So first thing I'd like for you to do, inside your, in the back part of your handouts today, you'll see on the very back is the draft that we're going to look at. But then before that is this colored continuum that I want to reference because this is an important part of the structure. The idea of the guide came from something that we worked on a couple of years ago when we were starting to try to make the portraits of a learner come alive in districts. We started to think about performance outcomes and indicators. So KDE created a tool to help districts with that. And that helped us as facilitators use that tool out in the field. We hope that this will be similar, that districts can use it, but also people, our regional innovation specialists, other vendors and partners across can use this tool. But it's based upon, the structure of it's based upon this continuum. UK Next Gen created this continuum in January of this year and then revised it just a tad bit in May. It is created based upon the experiences of districts across Kentucky, how this usually happens. The left side in that bluish green, you'll notice that that is about defining student success, the portrait of a learner, and creating experiences, the vibrant learning to get there, and measuring that. So that's the student side. What happens when you start to build local accountability is you take each one of those individual students and you bring them all together. So I was a chief academic officer in Shelby County. So I think about taking 6,500 student profiles that I've defined their success and measured their success and put those all together. Then I start to say, what does a district success look like? And that's what you see on the orange side. You ask your community, what do you want? What's success look like in our district? You start to create the experiences for the district, and then you start to report that out. So you see this parallel structure. So when you look at this guide that we're getting ready to finalize, what we've done is we've created this toolkit, and it's organized around these 6 actions that take you from the very first action of defining student success all the way over to finally creating this system of reporting and reciprocal partnership with your community. So what we want you to do today is we have pulled out one section of that draft, and in that section you have that also in the back part of your handouts today. It looks like this. You'll see explore action 4. So if you count across on the continuum, action 4 is define success for the local school district. This would be where a district is ready to start thinking about a local accountability system. These are the actions and tools that they may need to get there. So what we're asking of you today is for you to look at this one section of the toolkit and give us some feedback. Think about the design choices as a user, as a community member, as an educator. How is this user-friendly according to how it's structured? Do the examples and the call-outs there, do those help with the understanding? Which parts of this are most useful for whatever your role is? And what questions might need to be answered, or what needs would a district or school leader have? So you're the first people to look at this as external from our writing team. And different parts of us have done, of the partnership have created different parts. What we need you to do is read through this action 4. And what we've decided to do in each one of those, there is a case study that our OVEC Elevate Ed team has really helped us create that part that will exemplify what that action looks like. So you'll read through the Bullitt County case study, jot down any takeaways that you have for that. And we are, again, I always get right in front of the break. We are short on time today, so we're going to give you that time to look at that. You might do that through your extended break at lunch, but then be able to give us some feedback if you think something, if there's some barriers as a user to that, or give us feedback of what you really like about it before we move on to the next step. Should we have Brandy go ahead and share, and then before we can, so we can stay on track with the agenda? Okay. Yeah, she said action, the actual part where action 4 starts is on page 33 of this draft. And Brandy is going to talk to us a little bit about how this might be helpful to a district.
Well, I will say our district is truly honored to be a case study in this guidance document, and to the Elevate Ed team, who has truly been crucial in the implementation of our local accountability. I feel like they captured that beautifully, and we're truly honored to be in that. Regarding the usability for my current role, the first time that I saw this guidance document, I was thrilled as Chief Academic Officer and supporting the work alongside our superintendent and assistant superintendent, because I feel like it really provides very clear structure and guidance on no matter where you're at in your local accountability work. You can kind of pick it up and say, okay, these are the next steps that we need to take. But then I also feel like it's going to, which is kind of getting into the second question, but it's going to help districts reflect on wherever they're at in that process too. I also think that clear structure is really helpful. I love how Susan walked through that, going from the students to the whole district. I'm able to look at that and say, okay, we have just determined what our pillars are going to be. Now we're going to start in the metrics. I can pick this up and see in that part, what is it that our team needs to start doing with our community? I also think Dr. Adrienne Usher, our assistant superintendent, says that in Bullitt County, we're just large enough to herd cats, and I would agree with that. You kind of feel that. But that shared language piece that this document provides us is really, really helpful. You know, sometimes you hear demonstrations of learning or defenses, and they're used differently. Even in our district, I feel like sometimes school to school. But this document really has that similar vocabulary that provides that shared language. I also think the prompts and the tools are extremely helpful. Thinking about using it as a district leader in other districts, the strategic planning piece is also very helpful. And then using it, as I mentioned, around reflection, but then also collaboration. Those case studies and examples, you can email someone from that district and say, hey, we read about this in this guidance document. How might you be able to help us? So I think that collaboration piece and the networking piece for districts is really helpful. I also think this document, as Susan mentioned, could be utilized for students, principals, and districts. So I would put this into our leadership team meetings with our principals on how might they utilize this in their schools as well. And then also that co-creation piece with your community, this is going to be really, really helpful for that. And then lastly, around strengthening our work, we really are at the place where we're starting to define metrics. So being able to look at this and have tools that we can bring to our meetings and use with our community is going to be really, really helpful, and utilizing more of a holistic model that's not only about accountability and those quantitative measures, but also those qualitative pieces, which I feel like this provides guidance on. So that's how I can see it being helpful.
Awesome, thank you. So we are staring down the barrel of lunch, I think. So I will say, we're not going to take time for you to dig into this and give feedback, but we do ask that if you have time during that lunch period to look at the guide, take any notes. If you write anything on a sticky note, feel free to see me throughout the day or Susan or one of our team. If you have questions, we are more than happy to answer them for you and to have a discussion with you. We are in an amazing space in Kentucky where we have a broader set of aspirations for our students than just a test score. We want them to have the knowledge, the skills, and dispositions built in concert with our community to build the future of our community with them. And I think that's incredibly exciting. It's the reason we've talked so long. So please take a moment during lunch to look over this guide. Let us have that critical feedback. We are no strangers to critical feedback, and we want it to improve the product so that it serves students. And with that said, I will turn it over to, oh, no, that's another slide. Essentially what I just said, I think, is what's covered in that slide. So, Gretchen.
All right, everybody. I'm going to try and do that weird thing where I talk fast so you get to lunch, but not so fast that you like don't know what you're supposed to do after lunch. So definitely raise a hand and let me know if this is like too quick and you're like, what on earth am I doing after lunch? Okay. But after lunch, we're going to be in some breakout groups. And the goal here really is to give you some time to choose a part of the framework that you're really interested in and get into it in a more interactive way. This morning has been a lot of like information sharing, which was important and necessary, and that's cool. And you probably have some ideas and thoughts and questions, and we want to make sure you have a space to engage in those. But the purpose of this afternoon is when you choose these groups, and I'll get to the groups in just a second, is to kind of consider two different things. One is, what about this component gives you hope for the moonshot? And what would have to be true about how we go about implementing that for that to be true? Like, to really use this thing to get to the moonshot, what would we have to do well? So there'll be time for some discussion about that. You're going to have time to like think by yourself and write things on Post-it notes, which I know brings everyone as much joy as it does me. notes on Post-it notes, to talk with partners about this, to have discussion in your group about this. There'll be folks there to facilitate you, but also to help take notes so that we capture your individual notes, but also a summary of that will be shared back at the end of the day. Second part of discussion is about championing this. We talked a little bit this morning, Jim talked about championing and advocating for things. And in terms of being a champion, we have some questions like, who needs to hear about this? Right, if you're in this room, you definitely know more than lots of other folks in the state about this stuff. How are we going to help people know? Who are the people that you are connected to where you're a credible person to talk with them about this? So how can we communicate with them to help them understand the promise and potential of this? And what role can I play? So second half of the time together, and these are 90 minutes we have in our working groups this afternoon. Second half is about that. So first half is like, what about this? Could be awesome. How do we have to do it to make sure it's awesome in terms of the moonshot? Second part is, how do we champion this? Okay, that's the gist. I forgot I had my own clicker. I almost just asked you to go ahead and sign. So we're going to ask you to sign up in one of these 4 groups. And I know you might be like, but I want to talk about all these things. Yeah, sorry, you can't do that. You can't be in more than one group at once. So you just have to pick one, okay? But you could talk at lunch with your friends and be like, hey, are you in the writing and social studies group? Because I'm not there, but I got some ideas. Like, feel free to do that. All right, but you have to choose one group. So you may choose to go in the writing and social studies group where they're going to talk about the opportunity for some local replacements of assessments. You can go into the group that's going to focus on vibrant learning experiences and what the state can do to help elevate and the local work that'll be done to measure the impact of an implementation of vibrant learning experiences. You can go to the group that is optional assessments, that is optional like interim assessments that were talked about a lot this morning. So if you want to go talk about those math and literacy interim assessments and the option to get into those, or if you want to talk about local accountability. So these are your 4 options. And I know it's just like, oh, if you're me anyway, you're like, I'm into all these things. But the reason we're asking you to choose one is that you have an opportunity for depth of conversation, but also because we understand that being a champion of this, you're unlikely actually to champion for the whole thing all at once in any conversation anywhere. You're much more likely to get in conversation with someone who's like, you know what, I'm really interested in this local accountability part. And so we want to organize and think about this that way, right? Or you're in another conversation with somebody else on a different topic. So real quick while you do those, I'm just going to give you a little peek. When you go into your groups, everybody has this high level question that's the same, right? What about this gives us hope for the moonshot? What has to be attended to as we design and implement this to really get to that moonshot? There's also specific questions to guide you that we generated in partnership with KDE staff. And so your conversations are going to focus on these questions. So they're slightly different for every group. This slide is the same for everybody. So just so you know, when you get there, you're going to get a handout that has these questions on it. They'll kind of anchor things for you. But we tried to kind of anticipate what might you want to think about. I want to share these with you to say they're meant to prompt you. They're not meant to limit you. These are not generated by the police. They are like prompts for your thinking, right? So use these questions to organize your conversation. Your facilitators are going to ask you to consider these questions. But if you have other things that you consider too, that's okay. They're not meant to exclude conversation. They're meant to provoke it. Okay. How'd we do? Is this basically making sense? I'm going to go back to this in case you didn't like finish your sign up. Okay, you want to talk about lunch logistics? Yeah, everyone sign up. If you don't sign up, I don't even know what's going to happen to you after lunch.
Bad things, very bad things. All right, so make sure you do have the QR code in your handouts, or go ahead and click it from up here. We will be going into, Susan, is there a slide with the rooms on it? Okay, so depending on how many people sign up for each room, let's go to All right. So if you're going into writing and social studies, first of all, we're all going to be on the 5th floor for lunch. All right. So we're going to go to the elevators, go up to the 5th floor, have a wonderful lunch. You will stay on the 5th floor for writing and social studies, and someone will show you how to get to room 517. If you are going into vibrant learning experiences, you will also stay on the 5th floor and someone will show you to room 516. If you would like to go to optional assessments, that will be on the 4th floor and someone will lead you to room 416. Local accountability, if that is your option, you will come back down to this room. All right. Now, if we see that a lot of people have signed up, I think our smallest room here is 516, 517. So if a lot of folks sign up for writing and social studies, we kind of assumed that would be the smallest one, but we may be wrong. But if you end up with a lot of folks in there, then we'll switch these rooms around. If you don't hear anything else from me, these are the rooms you're going to. All right. Any questions before we go? I will give you a warning when it's time to switch from lunch to the rooms. Then we will all come back here. We'll hear some share outs from each of them. And we are going to have quite a bit of time for Q&A with Dr. Fletcher. So please stay tuned and come on back after lunch. Thank you all. And you may now go up to the 5th floor. We are ready for our share outs. So I'm going to have each of the facilitators come on up so that they can share out what their groups did today. Who wants to start? Susan, you're standing right here. You get to start.
Slide 1. I am going to need the slide. Oh, thank you, Susan. So there was a lot of really great discussion in our room. Folks came to the table sort of ready to share. And so I so appreciate the conversation that we had and really digging deep. There was definitely a sense of excitement, maybe cautious excitement, but there was hope for the idea that without the specter of state assessment in writing and social studies, this would free up flexibility for educators to do the kinds of project-based learning experiences and performance events that they've been wanting to do and maybe have felt constrained by the state testing, that they didn't sort of have the time and freedom to do them. So there was a sense in the room that this was going to be a positive change for our educators and for our students. At the same time, our group was focused on what is the messaging and what are the supports that come along to ensure that this is not seen as something that is devaluing writing and social studies. We do not want to inadvertently limit students' opportunities to learn social studies and writing. And so it's the impetus on us to be really clear in our messaging and our supports to the field for how this is actually lifting up and creating new opportunities in those subject areas. We also spent some time unpacking this idea that it could be really overwhelming for districts and educators in particular when you say, here, you have now all this flexibility to go develop your own thing, right? So how do we make it really clear to educators and districts, these are the parameters, these are the guidelines, and by messaging those parameters really clearly to them, our group sort of felt that that would give them the safety, the grounding to stand on, okay, I have the flexibility and I really do have the freedom to design what works best in our community and for our students. But the group really landed on, we need to be clear about those parameters up front, so that could give them the assurance that they need to actually go and design something that works for their students. There was actually a technical question along the lines of that about, will districts have flexibility in terms of the grades that they report out on for social studies? So if they don't opt into the state option, which we know will be in grades 8, 5, and 10, and instead they do their locally developed option, is there flexibility in which grade? Could it be 4th grade or 6th grade, for example? What lessons can we learn from the writing portfolios that came up, some of PTSD coming back, right? And how can we ensure that really we don't repeat the same mistakes? How can we ensure these assessments feel authentic to the local context and aren't becoming compliance oriented as it was felt the writing portfolios turned into? And then the last key point from our discussion is, will the state consider designing or redesigning the state option in social studies and writing to be more reflective of the kinds of assessments that they're hoping local districts will be developing on their own, something that includes more performance tasks or more student choice, something along those lines. And then do you want us to go into the messaging too? Okay, so we thought of some key ideas of how we could champion this work and bring it forward for our different stakeholder groups. We spent a lot of time talking about for employers, right? These kinds of student-centered, performance-based or competency-based assessments in writing and social studies will provide students with the opportunity to develop employability skills, those kind of durable skills that employers are looking for. We talked about initiative, communication, collaboration, resilience. For parents, we discussed really inviting them into the conversation from the beginning and opening up with them or starting out with them by asking them what are the things they want for their students, kind of like you might as you're engaging in the local portrait of a learner work. Starting there as an opening for parents. For students, we can talk to them about how more engaging and relevant these assessments are. And really, our group was talking about focusing on that student experience when we're talking to all stakeholders. How can we center the student experience and the impact on students as the starting point when engaging with all stakeholders? And then some notes for professional development for principals and potentially changing some conversations that are happening at universities. How are we preparing leaders to support their educators in these changes and everything that goes along with that? So thank you.
Thank you. All right, Robert, is Robert? And then on deck, we've got Jennifer Stafford. Are you? Oh, Andre's going to do that one. All right. And then Sarah, you'll do the last one.
Perfect. So our Vibrant Learning Experiences group, I'm going to first of all say I am not skilled at facilitating because I love just having conversations. So we get caught up in really great conversation, which was very vibrant. Actually, it was quite focused on the building measures, and so there was some conversation about how do we collect the data, how do we really make the measures fit across a system that looks like 171 different systems, and so that was a key point from the discussion. A really great conversation around these are simple shifts, but we are basically unlearning decades of process, which is very compliance driven, and so we're trying to talk about where does this conversation about vibrant learning experiences need to fit in at the post-secondary level, especially with pre-service teachers. How do we make that more effective to really make this vibrant learning stick? Love this this quote that we have right there in the middle. What we measure is what we value. All right, and so that was a really a big part about just how do we make sure that the value of vibrant learning experiences is valued in every individual context across all 171 districts. Another good key point of one of the maybe kind of crossed from barrier, but also a need of something that needs to be is that identifying a consistent feedback loop, identifying just what does quality look like? What does quantity and quality look like in vibrant learning experiences? I think those are things that as we get into the pilot phase and on down, those are the things that we're going to be looking for. And some of the barriers that we talked about, big one right up on the top, and it kind of goes into multiple different veins, is time. Teachers need time to figure out what vibrant learning experiences are for them. They need to have time to identify where they're already actually doing vibrant learning. And so just having that time is valuable, but then also having time for interdisciplinary planning, and so that they can actually plan projects that go across disciplines. So really great experiences within our group. Some of the ideas for championing the work. Again, consistent messaging about vibrant learning, and just kind of addressing that the opportunity for those vibrant learning experiences may be different across the state. Again, like we said, a marketing plan to businesses. Had some really good thought about the skill credentialing, and doing those kind of things as an opportunity for championing the work within the business and community space. And love this one. That video this morning is a fantastic way, a great collaboration of ways as we are a social media culture, and you have a 3 to 5 minute video. Someone will watch a 3 to 5 minute video, and if you draw them in, unfortunately we've gone right past like the generation, and now it's like the TikTok generation where you need a 3-minute video, and that's a really brilliant way to share the message of vibrant learning. I think I did that without a breath. Go ahead, try that, Andre.
Do it. Let's do it. All right. Okay. So I would say that the conversation that we had around interim assessments had a little bit of a different flavor than conversations around the broader ideas like, vibrant learning, because interim assessments are sort of a very concrete thing. There are products that are currently being utilized in the classroom. And so a lot of our conversation focused around the features that are really most desirable and, which of these a state-provided solution then would have to maintain, and what that then means for advocating for in this space. And the things that people appreciated about the current interim solutions are sort of the things that you might expect, right? They provide timely, actionable information. They have systems that are more often than not easy to navigate. They provide rich resources for a variety of stakeholders that break technical information down into easily understandable terms and strategies. They provide strategies both broadly, but also for instructional, diagnostic follow-ups for teachers. So they make a lot of things easier. So the idea of having a state-provided solution is appreciated if it can maintain those features and then be indeed aligned to the academic standards. But obviously, that's not a quick and easy, and certainly not a cheap solution. So everybody, I think, recognizes that the State Department will have to make significant investments in that. And then once that kind of a system is out there as an option, then you can have sort of these sandbox tryouts where the districts can start to opt in, see how that works in lieu of the systems that they have right now. But there's almost like no easy like tiptoeing into that space without really making a full commitment to do this and offer that kind of a mature solution. So there were a few things, if you were to read this, a few considerations that had to do with, what this might mean. Also, like science assessment, was sort of lumped in with the interim assessment. So there was this idea that for science assessment, being careful about the scope of the assessment relative to the grades that it needs to be covered and how that affects both instructions and the sequencing, and looking forward for further instruction down the road and in high school. Most importantly, I would say when it came to champion this work, we had this conversation about not just like what can I do as a person, but also like what can KDE do to help me be a better advocate or to just generally help champion this work further. And so some things are captured here where you can see, for example, this idea of reminding people in districts that there is really the Division of Innovation and the Research Innovation Specialist that can help you with moving innovative practices forward, and really focusing the advocacy at this point probably a little bit more on the broader educational transformation toward the moonshot rather than interim assessment specifically, because it's pretty hard to imagine. Somebody said, like, I would be a little bit uncomfortable going to leadership in my district because I think in part, it would be hard to know what to exactly ask for. It's easy to advocate easier to advocate for sort of like we need to make changes in vibrant learning experiences and more broadly configure our assessment system, but sort of saying like, when there isn't yet a product that could be trialed out, to advocate for something specific can actually be kind of challenging. And then there's also this idea that obviously KDE can provide or would have to provide additional like resources that help both with the meaningful use of the information that these interim assessments provide, and essentially provide similar kinds of shored up resources that current vendors are providing. Let's see, is there anything else? Yeah, there was sort of this idea that it would be nice to have even more teachers and even more education board members involved in this conversation at some point. But, you know, I think there's an understanding that the timing of that and the configuration of that has to be thought out, because, you know, when you go to board members, you want to have also some clarity about like what the strategic solution is. And one person said something that I think was really nice. This was this idea of like going away from the why to the how, and being more transparent about the ifs and buts of the current vision. So this idea of like, where does KDE currently have certainty? Like, what are decisions that are pretty clear, but also like, what are areas that they are themselves are still exploring? And I think financial resources are one of these, but also like particular ways implementation and pilots will play out throughout the Commonwealth. That's something that the way that is being thought about, I think having more understanding of the uncertainty that the leadership faces, which helps them, I think, communicate that at local levels, was something that is appreciated. Would anybody like to add anything? Laura, do you have anything? Jennifer? Uh-oh. I don't see smiles. I see some is that a concerned face? Okay.
One of the key points that was made, our group was amazing. Thank you everyone that was there that gave input. One of the pieces that I would say that I would add to is that, you know, the interim assessment system, we're saying that it should be aligned to the Kentucky summative assessment, or that summative assessment, and that it would be one vendor that would create that whole system. And so our group found value in that piece because of the fact that right now they have MAP and STAR or iReady, and sometimes both in their schools. And then they also have the summative assessment platform as well. So what they're doing is they're taking time in their away from instruction to teach those different platforms. So I think another piece that's going to be beneficial that we could discuss is the fact that if it's all on one platform, the students become very familiar with that platform, and we don't have to teach the various aspects of those different platforms. So I think that in itself is a positive, and also reduces the amount of time toward testing or preparing for the test. So I think that also is another point.
Yeah, no, it's good. Yeah, I certainly didn't want to come across as saying this was all like critical. So thank you for bringing up the positive points. That's really good. Yeah. So people certainly did appreciate the vision, like Jennifer was saying. So if you know, if it can be executed with all of those desirable features, that is a very welcome system. Say that one more time. Yeah, the ease of communicating with, you mean like to make that the current system make it easy to communicate with families about the student progress, and that's a feature that, you know, yeah, people were wanted to maintain as well. Yeah, absolutely. All right, thank you, team. Appreciate it.
It's not a competition, but local accountability is pretty good. Our key points from our discussion, a couple of things stood out to us when we kind of went through a heat mapping process. And one of those were centered around educator capacity and resources directly to those educators. And so thinking about investing in teachers designing and assessing those innovative learning experiences, and building capacity for leaders to help build coherent systems for sustainability. So a lot of conversation around the longevity of this as well, and building capacity at the local level to help that be successful. In the realm of reporting, really thinking about identifying with community members which metrics matter within the local accountability system. Also had the conversation back to interim and summative assessments aligned with not only the academic standards and the summative assessment, but post-secondary outcomes as well, and those employability skills that we find in portraits of a learner around the state. We talked a lot about trust and reciprocity through partnerships. I don't think that's any surprise to the folks here who've been part of this council's work. Really thinking about how transparency and co-creation with our communities and families is essential to that sustainability and success of any given local system. So really kind of mirroring, thinking about building the system as we have in the council structure, but at the ground level within our communities, and how that transparency and trust we're already seeing in our L3s is increasing exponentially. And so thinking about that as something important to take away. We also surfaced this idea around incentives for businesses. And so seeing the conversation came up that and the easiest way to give an example of this is in your rural and your more urban communities. And so the perhaps discrepancies that may exist to give access to resources within the communities to make vibrant learning experiences possible that would be included in a local accountability system. So ideating around some potential solutions for those barriers, like incentives for businesses that could help them engage in that process. I think we threw around tax credits and other ideas that may be leveraged to bring business buy-in where there may be areas that are harder to reach. Some ideas for championing the work. We really saw this as, and we heard it a lot today, people just need to see it. They need to see it in action. And so really resonated with us this thought of getting teachers and leaders out across the state to see more vibrant learning so that they are enriching their own capacity and understanding of what that looks like in the context of making a really rich example within their local accountability systems. We also had a conversation around co-creation. Really appreciated the reminder that it's very easy. I think we talked about this early on. It's very easy to fall back into old habits of top-down leadership in this work. And so while we're getting to a point where we're issuing a lot of ideas and pilots again from the state level, thinking that we can't begin now to start to silo the work. And that includes at the local level. So making sure that co-creation is always a part of that local accountability system, and that it breaks its own habit, typically, of falling back into siloed pockets of leadership as it gets developed. Value propositions. So saw a real importance in being able to communicate value propositions for each stakeholder group. So if I am a student, what does the system mean for me? What is VLE? How would I expect to engage in it and have it transform my learning journey? For parents, what does this mean for my own student success? Educators, giving them an opportunity to think about the ways that they hold up their values in assessment data that really matters to them and their instructional decisions. And then employers. If I'm an employer in my community, what would new outcomes mean for me in the way that I interact with my community as well? And then finally, I think somebody else brought this up, the pipeline. So focusing on pre-service teachers, really finding a way to break through into the post-secondary space with our teachers in preparation, acknowledging that they have a lot of ideas on how to do outreach and build capacity within our current more traditional systems. So we really need to bring them into that conversation and leverage their thoughts as well in this process. And that's local accountability.
Oh, thank you so much, Sarah. First of all, I took some time to try to be into each of the groups to listen to the conversations, and it was an absolute joy, and also too just to listen to the input and the questions, and what's our next steps in each of the groups. There was a lot of thoughtfulness as we went through. So I want to take just an opportunity to say thank you. This is what's our next steps. What does this look like? How do we handle this? And there were tough questions, and there were great answers being. But that's the role of this group, is to pose those type of questions, but also to answer those type of questions to help us as we move forward. What I tried to do throughout the day is to just kind of get some big ideas, and I think that our groups kind of stole a lot of my ideas as we went through, trying to get some themes and some things I heard throughout the day to kind of talk about as we close. Oh, and then of course, I'll turn it over to Jim. I think is going to close out for the day. But a few reflections on from Dr. Fletcher. First of all, the local accountability, and I'm going to say we'll probably bring up local accountability a couple of times in this. It's something that this process is part of the buy-in from local districts. This started without a mandate. This type of a system is things that districts are already doing. Some districts, there's a handful, and it's not because they were told they had to do this. And not only are 18 L3s, but there's also other districts that are looking at local accountability models and implementing them. I talked about a little bit earlier about Rockcastle County. So, but also as a part of that local accountability, we understand that collaboration is key. Not only collaborating with our local community members, with our teachers, our business leaders, our students, our faith leaders, our government officials, but also communicating across district lines. And the things that people are learning from each other. And again, that local accountability model is not a carbon copy of one model just moved to another district. Because if you go back to our moonshot, we talk about in order to have a meaningful and useful accountability system, it has to have some uniqueness about it in each district. It has to. Otherwise, it can't be weak. You don't want Robbie Fletcher to develop one local accountability model for every single district, because different districts have different priorities. They have different needs. They have different resources. They have different goals. So how do we make sure that we give that opportunity in this local accountability model and allow the local districts to answer the tough questions? You know, you can ask me a question about local accountability, and I could probably answer it for Lawrence County, maybe even answer it for Woodford County. But I can't give the answers that maybe are more pertinent, maybe in Shelby County or some others, that it's because it's a local model. Allow the local community to answer those type of questions. The other thing is that came out that was, again, some side conversations is, how about our EPPs, our education preparation programs? There's some pockets of excellence going on in our EPPs already, just like there's pockets of excellence throughout the Commonwealth of seeing of what's going on as far as vibrant learning. We also have some of our EPPs that are looking at how do we encourage vibrant learning? How do we do competency-based assessment systems? How do we teach our teachers, our future teachers, to be ready for that type of classroom environment? But then we're going to have to build more relationships as we move forward. We're going to have to work with our EPPs to make sure that this is not just pockets. This is something that's working throughout all of our EPPs. Other things that came that as far as some closing thoughts, and again, I've got quite a few here, so bear with me just for a second. There's a lot of talk about the interim assessments. And again, firm belief that, you know, the biggest issue that I had as a principal, as a superintendent, as a teacher with the current education, the current assessment system is the data didn't come back to you till August 1. So that's one of the things behind part of the vision behind the interim assessment is to try to give districts and give teachers and give parents and students timely information that's aligned with those summative assessments. Now, one of the things I think that we really need to look at as we move forward, even though right now we have requirements of constructed responses, is there a way, and some states are doing this, Jennifer and I talked about this a little earlier, maybe when the multiple choice sections are handled, we can get that student level information back to the district that same day. Wouldn't that be nice? So can we do that? That's something we need to look more into as we move forward. Now, we're not going to be able to get the constructed responses back. That takes time to grade. But man, if we could just get the multiple choice parts back and the information that comes with that, that'd be a big step for us. So that's something else that we heard today as we move forward. Also encouraging, but not only encouraging, but fostering, connecting people that are looking at alternate ways, alternate competency-based systems, performance-based systems, better ways to assess social studies, better ways to assess writing. And I think that's the beauty of this. And I thank you to the social studies and writing group for bringing this out. This is really a sandbox for us to really grow something special. And what does this look like throughout the state? First of all, how do we identify some of the best models and then connect others to let other people see that and allow that to be grown within our schools. I think science is a great opportunity, even though we're still giving that one uniform test, which we're required to do as part of the federal accountability. There's also some work there that can be done with what is a nice performance/competency-based assessment model that could be used in science as we move forward. Some other thoughts. Again, a lot of districts are afraid to take that first step. So I think I want to thank the Division of Innovation for that, looking at and talking with our districts that are in this model of, this is a guidebook. These are some steps to help you to develop your own local accountability model. And you may be in different areas. So maybe you're not ready maybe you're past chapter 1, chapter 2. And again, without seeing that model, you may be ready for chapter 3 or chapter 4, because maybe you have your profile of a learner or some of those first steps as you move forward. So again, I think that's something else that's going to be so important for this group to talk about. I think we're looking at around August 1 to possibly publishing this guidebook, if you will. Is that what we're looking at? On track? Are we on track for that? Okay. So if it's a little bit later than that, blame the commissioner, because it's just because I hadn't reviewed it at that point. We won't put any blame anywhere else. But again, to have that ready for our districts as they step forward, I think is crucial. It's crucial. But also, too, making sure that we're connecting the other districts. Just to hear the story of 2 superintendents, one from Western Kentucky, one from South Central Kentucky, to meet just because they want to learn more and then share their ideas. To me, that's what this is really about, is sharing the ideas, collaborating, working together to get this vibrant learning in front of all of our students. That's the other things that I heard. Again, collaboration is key. One of the things that we didn't mention, a couple things that we didn't mention today, is we've been talking with districts and with other groups on rubrics for looking at what does an accountability model, local accountability model, look like. So you can evaluate personally of how far you are along in your local accountability model. But also, too, a part of our model has a third party coming in, I think, every 3 years to look at, to identify, to review local accountability models and say, these are the exemplar practices throughout our districts. Now, right now, we're not looking at saying this is a, quote, this is a valid local accountability model. This is not a valid. We haven't gotten that far yet. But what we are doing is we're pushing forward with, how do we identify exemplary practices and make sure we put that out so everyone else can see that. So that's part of that, a little bit of accountability behind of, this is what a good local accountability model looks like. One of the things that from a KDE standpoint is, what does the statute look like? We've been talking with our policy advisors here, and we were talking about taking a broad approach to what the statute, or as broad as our legislators will allow us, to say this is the broad statute that we're proposing for this model. Overall model. We're talking about all parts of the model, and then handle some of the details more in regulation, which we'll probably have to pull this group in to get a lot of help on that too. So with that being said, is trying to have with our policy advisors at KDE, is having a broad picture, a broad statute of what this may look like, and then maybe handling a lot of the details through regulation. I think the biggest question that I heard today was, when we talk about local accountability, is, first of all, how do we balance compliance with transparency, with trust, and with flexibility? We want to show our districts that we trust you to develop these local accountability models, but we still need to give you parameters. This is what shall be in a local accountability model. And I think that will give a lot of our districts comfort of knowing, if this is where we have to start, then we can just go from there. They have the parameters and they can move forward. So for me, we want to make sure that we have the parameters for our districts as we move forward in a local accountability model, so that, two, that we show that we trust them to develop these things, but also come back and verify, if you will, with this evaluation every 3 years. So again, I know a lot of those thoughts are kind of just broken, but I was trying to take notes throughout the day. Is what came to mind for me. But overall, again, I think 2 key words at the beginning of the day, I started off with the key word of momentum. The momentum that we're seeing in our state, with our General Assembly. And I'll go back to the first thing I said today. When we gave the presentation to IJCE, and when we were finished, we had legislators that were giving examples of local accountability that was going on in their represented areas. Actually, one legislator said, I wish this was going on in my, well, I won't get into that. You know, so you talk about pressure. That's local accountability. It really is. So again, I really think that we're in a great spot with the momentum that we're having to move forward with this work. I think we can all agree. Are there a lot of questions? Absolutely. There's still a lot of questions to ask and to answer. The other word that I'd say is opportunity. This is a great opportunity for us to make a difference in what's happening each and every day with our students. This is an opportunity for us to change the student experience. Now, I will say this. There are some districts that are all in already and have been doing things like this for a while. We don't want to discredit that. We want to embrace that. We want to use them as models. That's why a part of this piloting phase and with the local accountability model is so important. Now, we've had a lot of excitement outside the state, people asking us about what's going on here. And as a matter of fact, the National Association of School Board, NASB, is the group that has asked us to be a part of a reimagining high school group. And I do want to show you a video. Susan, can you tee that up for me? And this is one of our, well, in this video, you're going to see a lot of things, but it's kind of an introduction of our meeting in April 28th through and 29th in Indianapolis. But you're going to see one of our students who takes a lead role in talking about high school transformation. And you're going, this is enjoyable for us. So let's take an opportunity to look at this, please.
My two last points, always focus on community involvement and always focus on vibrant learning. It's a running joke at this point how much I mentioned vibrant learning with the student advisory. You see, they're nodding. I mention it every single meeting as much as I can. Always focus on vibrant learning experiences. Ask my commissioner about that one. And yeah, just do the best you can in the time you have. That's my final advice.
All I can say is, honestly, students play the central role in the transformation piece. They're the ones who are going to be the recipients of what is happening. And as our students shared with us last night, they don't want to just be done to, they want to be a part of what is being created. And so I think their voice is central, and parents as well as community members, because it is our community that supports our schools through their tax dollars. And they should be able to reflect local context and what people are interested in.
I think one of the big things that we need to think about, and we're here at Purdue Polytechnic High School, which really models that, is making sure that policy aligns with what is best for students so that schools can do the things that they need to do, and that matches state policy, federal policy, all of those things that are out there. That alignment is critical for being totally student focused.
Being in the building in the natural habitat of high schoolers today is a really good way to kind of solidify our learning and think about it in terms of application. So really that opportunity to engage with students is the number one takeaway for me always. But I'm also reminded that the decisions that we make as policymakers have direct impact to the desk of the learner. So when we think about the kinds of experiences that kids talk about today around passion projects, project-based learning, career-focused learning, lots and lots of choice, that just encourages me that those are the design principles that we need to be thinking about when we think about high school policy.
thinking along the same lines as far as solutions goes, as far as rethinking credits, going to a single diploma and getting away to multiple diplomas that can be both confusing. Also even looking into a more competency-based system in the transcript that can communicate those competencies outside of the Carnegie units that we use now.
All right, my first comment is, other than I'm sorry that was so loud, is two, I did not arm wrestle Adrian at any point. He was a pretty big guy. So Adrian was great. There were several people that we were invited to be a part of, I think it's Indiana, Missouri, California, New York, Kentucky, Indiana, and maybe North Carolina may have been the other. Missouri was one. But to be a part of this reimagining the high school setting, because of the work that's going on throughout the Commonwealth. Now, what we would like to do is also include the KUWL Council as we move forward to, okay, now we're looking at advocacy, we're looking at being champions for this work as we move forward too, but also too, what does this mean when it comes to the high school experience? So we'd also like to bring more high school teachers, maybe more high school principals to be a part of this group to say, what is our new, how's our new accountability model impact that high school experience? What exactly, maybe there's policies, maybe there's statutes that need to be changed. What are the barriers? We have some districts that are so far along, and maybe there's something that's blocking them from taking that next step. What is that? So again, being a part of this, the KUWL Council, to answer those questions as we move forward of, one, how are we implementing local accountability? What's our progress report? How's this going? But also, two, to be a part of that reimagining the high school experience. So you'll see that as part of the KUWL Council as we move forward also, too. So with that being said, I've talked about a lot, but I wanted to share that with you. And the last thing I'll say is the young man that was speaking was Preston Graham, who is also the student member of the Kentucky Board of Education. He was on a national student advisory panel to talk about things that were going on in their state. When he got up there, every time that he would speak, he started saying vibrant learning, vibrant learning. It was just, he went through and talked about vibrant learning in Woodford County. What does this look like across the state? And everybody kept looking to Preston to answer questions about vibrant learning. And this is our student. If you saw his enthusiasm there, imagine that type of enthusiasm with all of our students. That not only is he a student within our system, but he's also an ambassador for us. He's also out talking the talk and telling them, this is what's going on. These are the experiences that I'm having. So I really want to show the video mainly because I want to show Preston, first of all, which I've joked with him. I've called him Heath a lot just for the fun of it. But anyway, with that being said, imagine that same type of enthusiasm as we go through. So in closing, everything that was said today, especially in our 4 groups and the questions that were brought forth, and as you move forward and become champions, I want to say thank you for that. I know that we have some time here now that you can also ask questions if you'd like. So what kind of questions would you have for the commissioner that I can answer? I may just say, you know what, we'll have to work through our local accountability with our districts, but we'll see. Questions? Thoughts? Yeah, Renee?
Going forward, as Dr. Flynn said in the morning, as advocates, how can we inform and increase our advocacy role to push new accountability and all the work of the KUWL Council forward in the state?
I think it starts with looking at the roles that you play. Like if you're a teacher, how do you talk to other teachers? If you're in a district, how do you talk to your district leaders? And just a matter of being a part of different community organizations. You know, going back in the videos that we're producing, that we're putting out, I think those are great tools for us. So I think it's about finding those opportunities to talk to people around us, stepping outside of our districts. You know, there's some of us here that work at the district level. How can we go out to other opportunities to talk to others? Whenever, maybe even at, let's say, for example, CASA. We have one of the larger conferences in the state coming up with administrators. Maybe even looking at doing some sessions during that to inform people about this is where we are with our local accountability model. This is where we are with our overall accountability model. So again, I think it depends on your role and then what connections you have to utilize those. So, and going from that step moving forward. Yes, ma'am.
I want to just follow up on that a little bit because your question picks up on some conversation we had in our breakout, and it might be worth just sharing what we discussed, which is in this stage of advocacy, it may be helpful to kind of underscore what the purpose of advocacy is. And what I heard you say, Dr. Fletcher, and I just want to say it for everybody and emphasize this, is we're asking you to share about this work and to build excitement, to share what excitement you have. You don't have to change minds. You don't have to change structures. You don't have to convince your school board. We're not there at this point in time, but we're trying to build momentum and build from the momentum that has already happened. And please, anyone at KDE, tell me if you feel differently about that. But I think just being really clear about the purpose of the advocacy can help you when thinking about what your role is and who you're talking to, what kind of the end game at this point in time.
I think that's very well put. Thank you so much for that. Others? Other questions or comments? Or maybe even a comment on the day. Something that you were like, I'm going to walk out of here. This, when I came in, I was enthusiastic, but when I walk out, I'm even more enthusiastic. Why is that? Is there anything you'd like to share? So?
If it helps on the topic of advocacy, try to involve the professional state organizations. Those are pockets of professional learning that in times of budget cuts and limitations, they can provide for teachers what perhaps school districts cannot, because they cannot afford a specialist on XYZ content area. The state professional organizations can step up to this. And an example, and I promise this is not advertisement or anything, but the Kentucky World Language Association, which focuses only on world languages, is going to have their fall conference in September. And the main topic of the conference is precisely vibrant learning experiences. They have been working with Dr. Lu Yan on this. So my question, or more than my question, my encouragement to all of us here at the council would be, how are you leveraging the state professional organizations to push this message? World languages is an example already. So how are the math state professional organization doing this? How is the ELA professional organization? How is Kentucky TESOL doing this as well in terms of English language development? What about the Council for Social Studies? So.
Very great point, great addition there. What professional organizations are we a part of? As a matter of fact, I am the keynote speaker for KASA. And I'm going to be talking about vibrant learning. I'm going to talk about local accountability. I'm actually flying back from California. I'll be back at 12:30 a.m. to be the guest speaker the next day, 9 a.m. So that's part of the things that being a part and being visible in these professional organizations, not just the responsibility of the commissioner. It's all of our responsibility. It's all of our opportunity to be champions. What professional organizations you're a part of, then let me tell you, they will love to have you speak at maybe at a function. Also to the Kentucky School Board Association. I've spoken at the Kentucky KSBA and talked to school board members because let's face it, they're key. They're a key part role players in this. And how does this get implemented into their districts? What other organizations that you're a part of? That's a great point that sometimes I don't really think about is how do we leverage? Even though we're trying to leverage our organizations, what role can you play in that? So that's some great thoughts. Great thoughts. Others? Comments? Positives on the day? Okay, I'm going to ask the question, rate the day on a fist of 5, because I need some positive feedback. I just do. I'm sorry. Is the answer already 5? Was today something that was beneficial to you? You feel like, okay, I feel better about going out and being that champion. I feel better about talking to other people. This has been a good day of learning for me. This was worth my being here at KDE on a Friday. 5, absolutely. Fist, no way. Well, some of you not even raising your hand. Come on now. There we go. Thank you all so much. I appreciate it. Well, with that being said, for me, this has been a 7. This has been a 7 because I got to listen to all the comments that you were making. And again, that really, Jim, I really appreciate Jim talking about our listening. And that's been part of what we've tried to do is listen. And if you look at 4 prototypes, 4 model frameworks, all that's part of the listening process, then making changes as a part of that. Another comment?
Well, it's a question, but I'm not for sure if it's for you or for Karen or Jennifer, because I don't know who wrote it. I wrote the question that I had down, but not who said this. The percentage of students participating in vibrant learning experiences currently, and what will be the expectation when we have our pilot. Because someone mentioned that there's a certain percentage of students that are participating in vibrant learning experiences. And it came across to me as there's not an expectation that everyone will. So again, it was either Karen or Jennifer. I'm not for sure who made that comment. Can anyone follow up and tell me more about what the expectations are and how many students are actually participating in the vibrant learning experiences?
I don't know that I have an answer to that, but I want to clarify what I think that question came from, which is a proposal that perhaps at some point within the reporting of vibrant learning within a local accountability system, it would first come from perhaps a percentage of students who are participating or are actively engaged in those experiences. And then over time, perhaps transitioning that over to instead report out on the quality of those experiences. Jennifer, I don't know, I think you maybe had mentioned that in one of your comments. Oh,
thanks, Sarah.
Sarah, I'll be a Karen any day. All the Karens I know are lovely.
So that did an example I gave while talking about including your vibrant learning experiences in your local accountability system. Just a couple of options, because I'm trying to demonstrate the fact that it is so driven by your local community and where you are in the capacity that you have in your local districts to be able to develop local accountability. So where it may start is that you have just the percentage of students who are engaged in vibrant learning experiences. That's one of the required, but with options in the local accountability system. If you're already there, there's some districts that have been doing vibrant learning experience a long time. And so they may be more advanced in their system and want to include the quality of the performances of their students in their local accountability system. So those are just some options that are required, but the flexibility is there for your districts to be able to choose.
Yep. And I think the expectation would be that if you're reporting out on that, your community would want to see close to 100%, if not 100% of students participating. And this is just the metric by which districts are held accountable for that and to their local communities. So does that answer your question, Kathy?
Others going once? All minds cleared, ready to go out and be champions? All right, I'll close with this before I turn it back over to Jim and Karen. Again, the momentum is strong. What we're seeing across our districts is not anything like I've seen in my 30 years. I'm starting my 30th year in education. Always before, it was about rank and file and where did you fall? Where did you fall on this? Are you in the bottom 5 percentile? Are you the top 5 percentile? For the past 3-5 years, I've seen more districts collaborating together to make a better experience, a vibrant learning experience for their students, and they're crossing boundaries. Again, I'll go back to Woodford County. Some of the ones I didn't mention, there's more than just, they had Rowan County, they had Clark County, they had Shelby County, they had Logan County, they had Kenton County. They were reaching across the Commonwealth to build a local accountability system that held not only themselves accountable, but made a better experience for their students. How do we spread this? How do we keep moving? We're at a great point in our history to make this happen. When you have legislators already talking about this, this is great momentum. When you have 84% of your superintendents that are already on board, not only on board, but they want to learn more, they're ready to move forward with this, they're excited about the work. We are in a great position to move forward to make a difference for our students. Don't get me wrong, there's been a lot of great work to get here. And I don't want to dismiss any of that. But we're at the point to make a big difference, to make sure that we're holding ourselves accountable, not only from a state level, but also from a local level, to make sure students are getting those vibrant learning experiences through innovation and education, most importantly, with collaboration. That being said, thank you for your day, and I'll turn it over to Karen.
All right, and before we close out, and I'm going to give Jim Flynn the last word here, but logistics again. We do have a survey for the end of the day. In this survey, we are going to be asking you if you are willing to be an advocate moving forward. Are you willing to be a champion moving forward? And remember that we define that in two different ways. Advocacy is about helping from a policy perspective, and a champion is helping from a local or your own perspective, whatever lens that comes from. We are interested to know what kinds of things you'd like to talk about if we tap you on the shoulder and ask you to come to some other meeting or conference with us. So all of that is in this survey. Dr. Fletcher also talked about our next step going into reimagining high school or transforming high school. And so we have a question in this survey as well. Are you willing to take that next step with us to talk about what that's going to look like? So please take a moment, fill out that survey. And with that, I am going, and also your name tags, name tents, please just keep those on the table. We'll pick those up. And now I will turn it over to Jim for the last word.
Okay. Well, that's been another stimulating and engaging convening of our KUWL Council. And I always love coming and gathering with you all as we think about what can be. And so, I think we're making steps forward to realizing our moonshot and to move another step toward having an assessment accountability system that's meaningful and useful to all our learners and compelling as a truth-telling, trust-building system around what matters most in our schools. And as we step forward in this discernment of being a champion and/or an advocate, I think hopefully you're getting a little more clear on what that is. But we need you, as Commissioner Fletcher said. We have momentum on our side. We really do. And, I talked to a lot of, legislators. I talked to a lot of superintendents and folks like that. And we're making progress on that. But we have more work to do, and we have to bring more and more people along with us. And so we got to get clear on these value propositions for all stakeholder groups. First and foremost, it's always about our students at its core. And what does it mean to them? And they want a meaningful, personalized education that includes vibrant learning experiences that are aligned to their skills, interests, and aspirations for the future. So make sure that those talent, skills, and interests are always considered there. Families want to know that my student's growing and making progress and ready for next level success. And educators need that system that informs teaching and learning. And communities want schools that produce good, engaged, contributing citizens. And our employers want students ready for post-secondary training and the workforce. And then finally, policymakers. We got to remember policymakers. You know, they want to know that we're delivering strong outcomes, student outcomes, and a strong return on that investment, both local and state investments. And so we can tell those stories about how this can translate into wins for everybody involved. Because one of the things that I think we can all agree on, while our schools have probably never done it better in the history of education in terms of delivering toward all students, we still have way too many falling through the cracks. We still have way too many things that we want to see improve. And the definition of insanity is doing the same thing, expecting improved results, right? We have an opportunity to do something that I've dreamed of for a long time, and I see it being here. So thanks to each of you all for contributing your time, your energy to this work. Thank you, Commissioner Fletcher, for stepping up and leading this, and you and your team for organizing and supporting what we do here. I'd like to thank all of our partners that are helping us in this. And the last thing I want to say is let's be bold. Let's go out there and be those champions and advocates for this work. Tell the stories. Talk to people in your communities. Talk to people in the similar role groups, and invite them to be a part of it. Sometimes it's just as much as that. Just an invitation to say, join us, and we will be pleased with how many people that come along with us. So we have the momentum. Let's seize it. Thanks. And do I drop the mic now?